Recording in progress.
Okay, we're now
Thank you.
ready.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Town Council of Moraga for Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. It is 6:30 p.m. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of Government Code, which authorizes teleconference meetings under the Brown Act during certain proclaimed states of emergency. The Governor of California proclaimed a state of emergency related to COVID-19 on March 4th, 2020. This meeting will be held via teleconference only and will not be physically open to the public. Town council members and staff will teleconference into the meeting by audio and or video. The meeting will be conducted via Zoom webinar. The public can participate via several means. You can monitor the meeting via the live Zoom, and the link to that is available at the agenda page for Moraga, which is a link at the Moraga town homepage. You can also participate via Zoom or by telephone, and the instructions for connecting via both are included in the agenda, and the agenda is available at that agenda site. Included with the agenda instructions are instructions for connecting via Zoom visually and via audio, and via audio via telephone. So we hope that you participate. So let's call the meeting to order and do roll call. Councilmember Onoda. Looks like we've lost Teresa.
We've lost her.
We've lost her.
Oh dear.
I'll go look for her if you want to continue.
Councilmember McClure, I was just thinking, considering options there. Councilmember McClure?
Here?
Mocker?
Here.
Vice Mayor Sauce?
Here.
And Mayor Wellahe is here also. We do have a quorum. So let's proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Afshar has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. We have the flag is up. Afshar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director of Planning, Afshar Hamid. Okay, so that brings us on to special announcements. There are none. Proclamations and presentations, again, there are none. And then on to item 5, public comments and suggestions. This is time reserved for those in the audience who wish to address the town council on items which are not on the agenda. The audience should be aware that the council cannot discuss details or vote on non-agenda items. Your concerns may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Please note that each item on the agenda will have a public comment period, and so you will have that opportunity at that point to comment on items on the agenda. Let's check to see, I think we have at least one attendee who would like to make a comment. That is Barry Bear. Marty, if you could bring Barry on, please.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good.
Evening, Mayor and council and staff. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Moraga Valley and want to thank the town for the phenomenal 4th of July event we had. Specifically, I wanted to thank Park and Recs. They were wonderful to work with. Brianna, Jasmine, Donald, and the entire staff through the planning and execution of that July 4th celebration were just wonderful to work with. Just a comment about some of our quick activities. we want to thank the community for their participation in our annual raffle. It was record sales, and the proceeds of that is being split between the Kiwanis Club and Troop 212. Also, the Jumpies we had operating all day, record sales, and that was executed.
Okay, what do you mean?
Was executed by the Kiwanis Club and the Key Club, which is the youth clubs in the high schools, along with some additional help with the Scouts as well. Also, wanted to recognize the Lions Club. They teamed up with the Kiwanis Club and they had the food venue operating all day long, and they had their youth there as well. The Lions Club and the Key Clubs were there, or I should say the Leo Club.
Leo.
So all in all, it was a spectacular day here in Moraga. And I know around us, there are communities where police chiefs and fire chiefs would rather not even have a 4th of July because of issues in those communities. But Moraga really pulled out a phenomenal July 4th and showed and delivered the type of July 4th that every community should be able to have in their town. So once again, great activity. Thank you to the town, staff, and we look forward for future celebrations teaming up with the town. Thanks again.
And Barry, thank you, representing, I guess, the town council, and maybe others would like to chime in, but thanks for your leadership and all of your work. I know you were there from very early in the morning until very late, and I'm sure a long but probably enjoyable day for you.
A lot of people were, Mayor. I mean, it was a long day for a lot of people, but that's what made it so great.
Right. Thank you. Are there any other attendees who would like to make a comment during this period? I see no hands. Marty, could you confirm?
Yes, confirm, nobody else.
So I'll close that period of public comments and suggestions, and that takes us on to adoption of the agenda, consent agenda. Excuse me. I'm going to continue to move forward. Cynthia, have you made contact with Teresa?
Yes, she's having some problems with connectivity. They're working on it right now. She's going to call in from her landline. So I've asked Marty to announce it if she calls in, and if she ends up on the attendee list, to promote her. So we can let Marty will let you know when she arrives.
I will try, but I'm not sure we can successfully promote a phone call. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, because when they want to talk, you can. You can allow her to talk though.
Absolutely, yes.
You can allow her to talk the whole time.
Is she?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
her phone number.
Okay.
And I'd like to just mention that Teresa and I are on the same internet, so it's possible I could have problems too, just to give you a heads up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. So on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that members of the council want to pull? I would like to pull actually item 6.10. Is that right? Just a minute. Yes,
Springbrook?
6.10, yep. Upgrade and mitigation of Springbrook Financial Suite. Is there a motion to approve the other consent agenda items?
Don't move.
Renata?
Oh, Mike just beat me to it, so I'll second.
All right.
So this is to approve agenda items 6.1 through 6.9 and 6.11 as proposed.
Yes.
Yes.
Mike seconded. Roll call vote, I guess. Sona?
Can I interrupt for a second? Teresa's here. Marty, can you let her talk? Permit her to speak?
Oh, there she is. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then maybe just take a moment and tell her where you are.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Teresa, can you hear us? Not yet.
unmute yourself? Or Marty, can you unmute Teresa? Oh, no, you can't. I don't know how you unmute yourself on a call-in. Anyone?
She is, I do
Stop.
not,
There you go.
okay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just now got connected, so I don't know where you are, so please continue and I'll try to catch up.
Well, we are on the consent agenda, and
Okay.
all consent agenda items except for Springbrook have been approved. So I pulled Springbrook, and if I may, I'd like to just request a short question with regard to it.
And did you guys actually vote? I don't think you voted on 1 through 9.
We did.
You're correct. Thank you very much. So let's have the roll call vote. Councilmember Macher,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Onoda,
I'm going to abstain since I didn't hear what's all going on.
sure. Vice Mayor Sauce,
Yes.
and Mayor Wallicki is yes. So that's a vote of 4 in favor and 1 abstention, and the abstention is Councilmember Onoda. So on item 6.10 and Springbrook, so the background and the reason I pulled this is that we've been through a number of years where, you know, the financial reports get pulled together by merging spreadsheets, and my understanding was that we were making automation of the financial system one of our priorities, our goals. And is this activity going to achieve that goal? You know, is it really going to take care of the historical problem of having to merge spreadsheets together?
Hi, good evening. This is Annie too. Mayor, I would like to answer your question. This is to move from our existing legacy system, which we've had for many years, and move it to cloud platform. And this will streamline our accounts payable process, our AR process, and certainly our budgeting process. Because right now we're doing a lot of the budgeting on spreadsheets, and it's very cumbersome and very inefficient. So hopefully with this new system where we can have a budgeting system within Springbrook that will allow us to better process all the finance functions such as APAR, budgeting, report writing. So hopefully it will make it much easier for our town staff to use the system.
So so what I'm hearing is that it's a worthwhile investment.
Yes.
For the additional funds, and will offer economies and efficiencies to make it worthwhile.
I also believe that it will improve the accuracy of our records because we won't have, you know, the possibility of kind of small errors being made along the way. So, and it'll allow us to tie our budget really easily to Springbrook. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're adding the capital improvement module, which we don't have now. We have it on a separate system and they don't talk to each other. So I just want to say that staff feels very strongly that there are a lot of benefits to this. And if we didn't, we would never, ever take all the time and energy to do it because it is a lot of work.
Right.
So, but 6 months from now, we're going to be in a better space. So
That's correct. That's what we're hoping.
Sooner. So thank you very much, and appreciate your following through on that. I know that's something that the town council we wanted to pursue. And if there are other comments from other council members, Mike, you have
Yes,
your hand up.
Annie, as a finance person to finance person, I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but did you try to do any CBA cost and benefit analysis, even on a simplified basis on this?
We did do a comparison of what we're paying now versus what we'll be paying. The cost is very minimal. Basically, it's $23,000 for a brand new platform, cloud platform. That alone speaks volume because I came from another city and we were spending $3 million on the system. So $25,000 is a very small amount to pay for a cloud platform.
Any other comments or questions from town council members? If not, I would like to move approval of consent agenda item 6.10, upgrade and migration of Springbrook Financial Suite. Is there a second?
Second.
So it's been moved by Wallachy and seconded by McClure. Roll call.
Mr. Mayor, my
Yes.
apologies, but did you call for public comment?
I did not. Thank you very much for reminding me.
My apologies for interrupting.
No, thank you. That's a good point. Are there any attendees that have questions or who would like to comment on this agenda item? I see no hands, so let's then move forward. We have the motion, we have a second. Let's have the vote. Councilmember Macher,
Yes.
Anoda,
Yes,
and welcome.
thank you.
McClure,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sass,
Yes.
and Mayor Wallachy is a yes, so we have unanimous vote in favor.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Annie. So that moves us on to adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion for such?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Anoda, second by Macher. Roll call vote.
Wait, excuse me.
Discussion?
Point of order. I have a substitute motion.
Okay,
I'd like to move that we adopt the meeting agenda and move reports 8A and B to after agenda item 10A.
and the reasoning for that, Mike?
Just to get to the topic sooner. Because I think we might have interested parties.
Sure. They may also be interested in hearing, what's going on with the council. It would be a deviation for protocol. How do other town council members feel about this?
I'm fine either way, so I will adjust my second or my.
Sure.
Anyone have a strong feeling on this? Town manager Brackenberg, do you
Fine.
you're fine?
Yep.
So there was a motion by Councilmember Anoda. Would you accept that
I do.
motion?
I do accept it.
And Councilmember Macher, do you accept the second?
Yes.
Let's have a roll call vote. Councilmember Macher,
Yes.
Councilmember Anoda,
Yes?
McClure,
Yes.
Sauce, Vice Mayor
Yes.
Sauce,
Yes.
and Mayor Wallachy is yes. So that moves us on to a revised item 10A, and we're moving the reports item 8 to the after that item 10. So I have a grounding for this tonight. Bear with me for a couple minutes. This is the second of a 2-night meeting on review of the draft housing element update to meet the requirements of the 6th cycle of the State Regional Housing Needs Allocation, or RHNA. The objective of Monday's meeting were to review the process and scope of the housing element as presented by staff, for town council members to ask questions of staff, to take public input, and finally to prepare for tonight's meeting. On Monday, I believe we found the draft housing element to be high quality, substantive, and very complete. Compliments to staff and the supporting team. Tonight's objectives are to take public comment again, for the town council to deliberate on the draft housing element and provide guidance, incorporate the input from the Planning Commission work, to allow also to allow each town council member at the completion of that to provide summary comments, and then contingent on majority vote to authorize submittal of the draft housing element to the Housing and Community Development Department for their review and feedback. Does Town Manager Backenberg, do you guys have any comments before we begin this?
I think Planning Director Hamid would like to say a couple words. And I just want to say kudos to the Planning Department, who's done an amazing, incredibly thorough job led by Afsha on this project and with the partnership of our great consultants.
Thank you, Town Manager, and thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to be really brief. So following Monday evening's presentation, as directed by Town Council, staff has prepared red lines. So there is a memo with red lines. 2, we've also recently been made aware that ABAG released just yesterday a summary of housing letters, review letters that they have provided to the Southern California or SCAG region. I guess they are learning tips from the SCAG region. And then 3, we have additional letters from the public that are also provided. And I just want to say that the past 9 months has been a monumental task, but it has not been daunting. As staff has assembled a team of experts and availed all resources. Some of those resources were ABAG technical workshops that we attended on a monthly basis. And those workshops were at times 4 hours long. Multiple meetings with Contra Costa County directives. We call this a collaborative. So it was with the directors and with all their consultants. Ongoing meetings with the La Miranda directors. Focused meetings with ABAG on high resource areas and concerns and issues that we should look for. Consulting on AFFH with a SCAG region expert who provided us advice. And of course, legal department. The result of the last 9 months is unprecedented public outreach, Town Council and Planning Commission direction, and state law and HCD requirements that we are now presenting before you. So tonight we have Barry Miller with Barry Miller Consultants, Stephanie Hagar with BAE, Karen Murphy, who's also here, our legal attorney, myself, and the town manager. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as we communicated on Monday, we're going to entertain additional public input. We're going to do this before the deliberations begin by the town council, and we're going to read letters submitted by the public that requested they be read into the record. And I asked Mike McClure to aid me in this. We're both going to read three letters. Mike, would you like to comment before we start?
Yes, before we did, just on process, Mr. Mayor. So when we get to town council deliberations, is it the suggestion that we will go through the programs in chapter 6 one by one and ask for any modifications to the previous red line?
Yeah, Mike, and I plan to go through that process before we started.
Okay, great. So I'll just wait then.
Yeah, if you would.
Mayor Walicki, before we start with public comment, I just wanted to note one thing for the record. There have been a number of comments made about the legality of some of the town's existing regulations, and I just wanted to note that the town's existing regulations were adopted and are currently consistent with state law.
Thank you, Karen. That was our legal counsel for anyone who was not aware of that. So, if it's okay now, I'm going to start reading the first of my three letters. And this is from Bob and Julie Stagg. And dear Moraga Town Council members, we are writing to you because we are very concerned that if implemented, the draft housing element plan will ruin the town that we all love. We are longtime residents of Moraga, and we moved here for the same reasons that most of its residents did, which includes its beauty, lack of congestion, great schools, low crime rate, etc. If someone asked me to write a plan that would ruin these wonderful attributes of Moraga, we would come up with something very close to the current draft housing element plan. Building high-density housing in our downtown area, scenic corridor, as well as adjacent to current single-family homes, and reducing the requirement for the number of parking spaces per unit will increase traffic, reduce the safety for pedestrians, make it difficult or impossible to exit the town in the case of an emergency, likely increase the crime rate, increase the classroom size, and negatively impact the quality of education and increase the number of parked cars on our streets, etc. Unfortunately, due to the housing element plan, we are, for the first time, thinking about moving out of Moraga. We would like to request that this email be read at the town council meeting. Please save Moraga and do not approve the draft housing element plan as written. Thank you, Bob and Julie Stagg. Mike?
Yes, I have a letter here from Ian and Gim Crew. Members of the Moraga Town Council, we are writing to express my alarm over the working draft of the 2331 housing element. I strongly encourage the Town Council to reject this draft and ask that staff start again and develop a plan that's better in line with the character of our town. We do understand the obligations imposed on Moraga by SB 9 and similar regulations. However, this housing element appears to go significantly beyond those legal requirements in ways that have the potential to dramatically, negatively impact the scenic beauty, peace, and semi-rural nature of Moraga. In short, removing a lot of the special things that make Moraga, Moraga. In particular, the plans for modifications to our carefully thought out and completely irreplaceable scenic corridors are deeply alarming. Giveaways of taxpayer resources to wealthy developers and encouraging their profiteering by being, quote, proactive in working with them, end quote, are also of significant concern. Please reconsider. Thank you, Ian and Gim Crew.
I'll now read my second letter. This is number 3. Please, and this is from Kim Sullivan. Please read this email in your meeting on Monday. We're reading it on Wednesday. I'm unable to attend, but I'm seriously concerned, having just seen the agenda items and the next door post by Mike McClure. Thank you, Mike. I have lived in Moraga since 1982. My husband and I raised 4 children in this town. We grew up in Lafayette. He grew up in Lafayette, I grew up in Alamo and Walnut Creek. Item 4B, please, at a minimum, do not approve rewriting the housing element at this time. I recommend that before you consider this, you have at least 3 to 5 open sessions with town residents for feedback on what we, the citizens and residents of the town, want. I do not have any idea of what is going on, but I do know that this town was meant to be semi-rural and has always been semi-rural and doesn't have the capacity or infrastructure to support otherwise. I am strongly opposed to the idea of deciding to make it something it cannot be by simply approving or renaming things such as roadways, lots, and zoning changes from commercial to residential, high-density housing. Our roads were not built to sustain a much greater population. Communities need carrier roads and neighborhood roads. I have seen confusion by the town trying to change a carrier road and was disappointed with ideas being reviewed. This town does not need more high-density housing, nor do we want to allow up to 6 dwellings on one standard size lot in town. Discussions of this type need to be widely advertised and many opinions vetted. The town can hold public chat sessions, send out survey links, and post on the town's digital sign near the Commons Park. The town could also post digests on Nextdoor and or other apps. Thank you, Kim Sullivan. Mike?
Okay, I have an email from Deborah and James Bergfeld to the Moraga Town Council and members of the Moraga Planning Commission. I request that you read this email at the July 11th meeting. My husband, James Bergfeld, and I wish to add our voices in opposition to the adoption of the changes proposed in working draft of the 2023-2031 Moraga housing element. As longtime Moraga residents, my husband's family arrived here in 1959. We do not want to further endanger the town's, quote, semi-rural, quote, character by giving developers opportunities to insert multi-unit buildings into established neighborhoods. I drive past the condo development on Country Club Drive nearly every day and bemoan the height and density of the units and the many cars lining the street. Had the developers been less profit motivated and scaled down the scope of the development, it could have been enhancement to the community. Instead, it is so obvious that the developer sought to wring out every possible dollar from the project by squeezing in too many units. Having lived in several neighborhoods in Berkeley with mixed housing, I feel strongly that apartment buildings next to single-family homes most definitely decreases the property value of the single-family homes, and I'm sure that we cannot rely on developers to have much regard for the current concerns of existing neighborhoods. While I understand SB 9 mandates increasing housing in our area, in spite of the obvious dangers to all of us in the event of wildfire and evacuation, I sincerely hope that more creative and acceptable solutions can be found than those outlined in the working draft. Please reconsider your support of the working draft of the 2331 Moraga housing element and seek less drastic solutions to satisfy the SB 9 mandate. Thank you, Deborah Bergfeld.
I have one here from Emily Bergfeld. Starts by saying, I request that you read this email at the July 11th meeting. I am writing to express my strong objections to many of the key propositions included in the working draft of the 2023-2031 Moraga housing element. I oppose recommendations to rewrite the Moraga general plan to weaken or eliminate existing scenic corridor, building setback, and zoning requirements, which provide some measure of protection from outsized dense development. Diluting or eliminating these constraints to development favors large, well-resourced property owners and developers without consideration for the impact such development would have on existing Moraga residents. With respect to daily traffic congestion, ability to evacuate the town during an emergency, long-term property values, and everyday quality of life. Although Moraga is located 10 minutes from the freeway, it has only two major roads out of the town. Moraga Way and Moraga Road is situated in a high fire danger zone and has very limited public transit, factors which don't support additional development. I understand that SB 9 imposes an obligation on the town to create more housing. Instead of rewriting the Moraga general plan or changing scenic corridor, setback, or zoning density laws to fast-track development that would permanently alter the semi-rural character of the town, I would urge the town to heed residents' suggestions to repurpose into residential units existing underutilized and vacant commercial retail spaces in Moraga's two town centers. Repurposing built or unbuilt areas in existing town centers as mixed-use development, senior housing, and student housing would allow Moraga to meet the housing mandates of SB 9 without opening the door to unchecked development. I support preserving existing single-family neighborhoods, open spaces, scenic corridors, and watersheds. Emily Bergfeld. Mike?
Yes, this is from Brent Myers. Please read into the record if possible. Council members, several surprising and critical staff recommendations in the most recent housing element should be rejected and staff directed to eliminate them entirely from the housing element document. The recommendations are inconsistent with previous staff and town council commitments to the residents as they relate to the housing element. They do not serve residents' interests are not required by state housing mandates and are inconsistent with Moraga values, which is preserved open space and views. I highlight some of the offending items below, but any that conflict with the council's prior commitments to simply comply with state housing mandates should be eliminated. Bullet, reduction of setbacks and setbacks. Bullet, alteration of scenic corridor guidelines and code. Bullet, subsidies for developers. Bullet, blind commitments to future bond measures and associated taxes. The staff recommendations have gone far ahead of simply complying with state mandates, and simply compliance has been the council's long-standing commitment to residents, and somehow, in very short order, have morphed into a very damaging progressive giveaway that could inextricably damage Moraga's character. Please set this initiative back on the right path. Thank you, Brent Myers. That's my last one.
Very good. Do you have any supplemental comments, Mike?
Yeah, I just want to say I looked at all the emails that come in. Many did not ask to be read at the end of the day. And, every mail we got except one was in support of some type of revision or rejection of the current housing element.
Okay. Thank you. Are there members of the public who would like to provide input tonight orally? I see a couple hands. Marty, if you would let Catlin in, please. Catlin, you're muted. If you could unmute, please. And we are going to allow each speaker to have 3 minutes to communicate their input. Catlin, you're still muted. Caitlin, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Would you like me to time, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to time?
Sure. I haven't started yet, but if you would, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Caitlin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Why don't you start then?
Okay, thank you. Honorable Mayor and Council members, my name is Caitlin Bracken. I'm a local rising junior in college, and I'm here to speak about how important it is that you move forward with the plan to build more homes in Moraga. I'm an environmental policy major and an independent consultant for the Contra Costa County Climate Leaders Program. So not just as a passionate advocate for the environment, but as a young person frustrated with the general lack of action to improve equity and access to opportunities, I find this to be a vital step forward and will be very disappointed should it not come to fruition in a sustainable and equitable manner. On that note, I was surprised at the very minimal inclusion of sustainability and equity in the staff report on the draft of the housing element. To address issues with the housing system and plan towards an updated housing structure without addressing environmental justice and social justice is inadvisable to me. One such example is working to ensure that low-income persons are not placing their air or water quality at risk by moving into a newly constructed development. And other considerations like distance to jobs or exposure to roadside car exhaust must be examined as well. So my asks are that you consider full electrification as part of all new construction, require water efficiency and conservation, consider purple pipe in new construction, ensure that new housing relies on and supports transit use, that you require emergency response wildlife preparation and evacuation, and promote tree planting and white roofs. I also believe that the housing element needs to include green jobs. It needs to expand green construction training and apprenticeships programs to grow the local pool of skilled labor, and to consider permit streamlining for new housing and establish green belt zones. My last ask is that the housing element be prepared alongside a draft EIR and a climate action plan update. In conclusion, I ask that you, as our elected officials, tackle the climate crisis and inequity in our society. Please include well thought out, measurable, and implementable language and steps to make the path forward more resolute and unwavering. The timeline of establishing sustainable and equitable housing for all community members will be seriously slowed down if the housing element is composed of non-committal language. Thank you for your time and for all you do to ensure that our community and environment remains protected. Thank you.
Caitlin, thank you, and I apologize for mistaking the raised hand as you're being muted. Very well prepared, and since the meeting on the 11th, we have some of the draft wording has been changed to address sustainability.
Awesome.
So Marty, would you let Laura in, please?
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Laura, you're now ready to begin speaking.
Right, I think I'm unmuted. Okay, I'm just gonna read something that I submitted, but I didn't realize I had to ask to have it read. So you probably have received it, but I feel like there are people that are here tonight that won't have heard my letter. I better get started. I have 3 minutes. My husband and I have lived in Moraga since 1983. My name is Laura Monin. My husband is Larry Monin. When we think of the potential for the town of Moraga to return to the commercial vibrancy of the 1980s and 90s, we are encouraged and cautiously hopeful. In the many town surveys taken over the past 15 or 20 years asking what improvements Moraga residents would most like to see, the creation of a vibrant retail centers is always at the top of the list. It's hard to imagine now, but during the decade after we and our 3 children moved to Moraga almost 40 years ago, there were 4 supermarkets, including a Petrini's, a gourmet market, 2 competing drugstores, Long's and Thrifty, a huge dry goods store similar to a Joann's Fabric, a bowling alley, a children's shoe store, women's clothing store, bike store, Boswell's party store, and a Baskin Robbins, all in the Ream Shopping Center. An independent bookstore, a Hallmark greeting card and gift store, shoe store, hair salon, greengrocer selling local produce, all in or near the Moraga Shopping Center. An optometrist, and Moraga even had its own general practitioner, MD. There are 2 primary reasons that are often cited as to why businesses that provide products and services in Moraga close or leave. 1, businesses and restaurants cannot keep their employees who are unable to afford to live here, and commuting is too far. 2nd, the rents in the shopping centers are too high. We believe rezoning our shopping centers for mixed use, commercial and residential, will address both issues, enabling our retail centers to once again thrive. The owners of the shopping centers will likely have greater potential for income. And by allowing apartments to be built, people who work in Moraga, teachers, first responders, retail workers, St. Mary's College professors and staff will be able to live here. The housing element not only meets the state requirements, we believe it has a very good chance of stimulating the level of commercial growth that our residents want. As we said when we started, we are feeling hopeful by what has been presented and appreciate all the effort, hard work, and analysis that has gone into preparing this draft for HCD. Thank you. I'm going to add one more comment. I read comments on Nextdoor, and I was quite upset, and you can put this in the record. There were people that were actually accusing our staff of being on the take or taking marijuana. And I have to say, I don't feel that Nextdoor is the venue, the forum to be debating our future town. What kind of town do we want in 10 or 20 years? And I will end that. Laura and Larry Monin, Moraga, California.
Thank you very much. Marty, if you would let Claire Roth in, please.
Okay, she's in.
Claire, you're on.
Thank you. I am Claire Roth, a 49-year resident of Moraga, and I'm going to be kind, actually, and give town staff the benefit of a doubt by assuming that in their draft, the intention is to advise council members of all possible actions available, and not to seriously recommend that things such as scenic corridors, setbacks, and receipt of developer fees by the town be sacrificed. I join other Moragas in asking you to balance state requirements with the desires of our citizens to retain the planning constraints we've adopted in order to preserve the character of the community. Please return to the previously stated intention to focus development of higher density and lower cost properties in the 2 shopping center areas while retaining setback requirements already in place. And please refrain from reducing the financial commitment developers must pay to the town. There are incentive funds available from other larger constituencies, far more solvent than we are. Thank you.
Claire, thank you very much. Marty, if you please let Elaine Lind in, please.
Okay, she's in.
Elaine, welcome. You may begin.
Thank you. I'm Elaine Lind. My husband and I moved to Moraga in 1968. Our children were educated here, and I would just like to briefly share my thoughts. Today in Moraga, rents are out of reach for many of our caregivers, preschool teachers, and grocery store workers and restaurant staff. They also have to drive long distances to get here, bearing the burden of astronomical gas prices. We compete with and often lose these workers to other towns. I can see a crucial need to permit more apartment-style housing that is affordable for our retiring seniors, the town workers, St. Mary's students, and staff. I'm hoping you will move forward swiftly with the permitting of more condos or townhouse-style housing in town that will allow our teachers, first responders, and other professionals to also make Moraga home. Thank you.
Elaine, thank you very much. Marty, if you would let Lisa Colton in, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Lisa, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. My husband, David Williams, and I agree wholeheartedly with much of the commentary that's been shared through the letters as well as the speakers. We are newbies. We've only been in Moraga 5 years, but I have been coming here for 30 years because my sister lives here, and that's why we moved here. We moved here because Alameda got very crowded, very crime-ridden, full of homeless, couldn't park. It was a wonderful place to live for 30 years, and it changed radically. So I will admit, selfishly, that we moved here because we wanted open space, good views, no crime, no homeless encampments, etc. It's been very educational, and I appreciate being able to listen to this session and Monday's session. We've learned a lot. We get that we have to do something. We get that there are mandates. I absolutely, and David agrees, high density housing would not only serve people who need to have housing here in Moraga, but doing it in the 2 shopping centers, which has so much open space, makes perfect sense. It would bring back business. It would not destroy current open spaces. I think I would ask that you absolutely do the minimum. Do the minimum that we have to do to meet the requirements. Do not mess with the neighborhoods and the existing housing. I shudder at the thought of my neighbor putting his house up for sale and having 6 units replace his house. I fully support high density housing and additional housing on the premises that are currently, used for retail and that are vacant. So I don't know. I don't have enough history here to say, please return to what we talked about 10 years ago. But I absolutely support using the commercial space, leaving the open space and the views and the scenery that we moved here for. And I appreciate being able to comment. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you very much. Marty, would you admit Ashley Coates, please?
Okay, she's in.
Ashley, good evening. You're
Hello,
on.
council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to comment, and when I quickly looked through the letters that had been submitted, I found at least 3 that were supportive, not just one. There was Laura's, there was mine, and there was Anna Zemek's. And I'm not going to go through my whole letter. I basically am supportive of doing the higher density. It's not high, it's just higher than what we're used to in the shopping centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Succinctness is good. Marty, if you'd let Linda Deschambault in.
Okay, she's in.
Good evening, Linda. We can hear you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Actually, I do echo Ashley's support. Although it sounds like I have a lot of things that we would like corrected, I think we do support infill, equitable, and sustainable. The question I have, and I thank you, if redlined and there is some more language on that, it's unclear to me how does a transparent public review hearing take place tonight, because I'd love to see those. I don't know if it's something you can send me a link to. But I do want to also let you know that since my Monday comments, I did call Lafayette and spoke both with electeds and staff and confirmed that I was not off base, that yes, the need for the EIR and the cap are essential to happen now, and it's kind of unclear how you will proceed with that, particularly if you don't start the EIR until the holidays, and we have to do this in November, December, and finalize it in January. So I'd love to know how that's going to happen. And otherwise, the HCD is likely to kick it back for not having considered mitigations. Our team also reviewed other housing elements and find that cities, even those like Antioch, are more similar to Lafayette with some more sustainability, equity, and very clear measurable goals. I hope you did get my email. I sent you some excellent examples of housing elements with a few very clear, implementable, measurable goals. Since I'm no expert, I just sent you a copy of one that 3 pages that were very succinct, and I think could be, even if you picked up 1 or 2 of those, it would be better than the none that I've seen, unless the red line's gone beyond that. So basically, I hope you don't wait until the holidays to update the climate action plan and write the EIR. And I do hope that you will continue with some type of infill, as long as we can make sure it fits well, it's sustainable, it's equitable, and bodes well for the next, our next, they say in every deliberation, we consider our impacts on the next 7 generations, and ask you to really give that some serious thought of what that means to you as our elected officials. So thank you so much for all you're doing. This is complex and important, and I really do appreciate all the work that you're doing on this.
Linda, thank you very much for your efforts on this likewise. Marty, if you let Sang Park in. Sang, welcome back. You're on. We can hear you.
First of all, I am very thankful for the members of the community who are in favor of further development on the existing shopping centers. So glad to hear that. With that being said, we sent a public letter out as well. I'm going to go ahead and read it. It does include some of our requests as far as the constraints go in order for the new development to be feasible. So here it goes. As the owner of the Green Valley Shopping Center, we are very supportive of the town of Moraga's efforts to update its housing element and encourage the development of new housing, both market rate and affordable. The proposed mixed-use overlay in Green Valley is encouraging, and we are interested in adding a residential building as part of Green Valley Shopping Center in 2023/24. We believe that the new residences will be benefiting the community, as well as our existing retail and restaurant tenants, and encourage new residents, businesses, and services to locate in the town of Moraga. The challenge currently is balancing the high cost of construction and increasing interest rates with appropriate height density, parking, and affordable housing targets to arrive at an economically viable project. Based on our preliminary work to date, we believe that the following are necessary to support a viable mixed-use component on our site. Minimum 3-story residential over a parking podium, maximum building height in the range of 50 to 55 feet, density of 30 units per acre, which is that's for program 2. Parking requirements similar to those in Lafayette. So that is 1 bedroom, 1.2 stalls, 2 bedroom, 1.2 to 1.5, for 3+ bedrooms, 1.5 to 2 stalls, and that's referenced in program 27. Minimum setback of 20 feet under the scenic corridor regulations and maximum 10% affordable component, which is under program 15. So we believe that a residential building meeting these parameters can be articulated to be aesthetically pleasing to the community, really as a mixed-use component to an existing retail shopping center. And we look forward to further discussions and working with the town council, plan commission staff, and community members to create a mutually acceptable housing product.
Saying thank you very much for your input. Marty, if you would let Dave Bruzzoni in, please. Dave, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Our lawyer submitted a letter, and I want to have James Earl Jones read it into the record. So, no. Yes, but you don't have to read it, but I want it put in the record, and I'm assuming every time we present a letter, it is read into the record and noted. I was going through the red line edits, and just going through the red line edits that the staff did the other day, it just kind of sets home that there is a tremendous amount of work that went into this process. And generally, I'm encouraged. But I've mentioned before that I've been through this process with Moraga before, and I don't want them to set up roadblocks or landmines in the system. And we've pointed those out in those letters. Please pay attention to those. Even if you think all the past work and effort that the town did is legal and consistent with state laws, frankly, there is no question whatsoever that they are constraints to development. And those constraints, at least partially, have been acknowledged in this housing element. Now, keep in mind, the town council back in 2020 initiated a big change in the town of Moraga, and that's where they said, we're going to be forcing development into the downtowns. So a lot of the, complaints and arguments that I hear from some of the people, and I don't want to say I disagree with them, but that change was made a long time ago, and we've gone through many hearings, including the specific plan. A lot of the items that we're complaining about today on this specific plan are rules and policies that basically allow the same type of development you see in Ream right now. The same type of development you see in Ream right now. The specific plan basically, went retrograde and said, okay, let's allow the Moraga Center to have the same rights that Ream had and when they were built out. Now, obviously, I think we can maybe build some of the products that look better and more aesthetically pleasing. A lot of the arguments that we're hearing on scenic corridors and setbacks, well, you don't have anything to worry about. Other than in the last 2 years, the Moraga made those rules a lot stricter. So we're not asking for something that's really a lot different than what the town already enjoys already. It's not going to be, the end of Moraga. And I can guarantee you, the Bruzzonis, whether we're characterized as developers or other, we have a long-term special interest in Moraga. It is our home. We're not here one day and then gone the next. We want to make sure that the rules and the product that we build is going to be great, and people that will come in and say, hey, I like Moraga, because a lot of what people see in Moraga right now is what my family, my mom and dad, Russ, started many years ago, and we're most certainly going to be carrying that through. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have 3-story buildings or buildings that go to 45 feet or more. We most certainly can. Yeah. No, that's a touchdown. Don't signal timeout.
It's a technical foul, Dave.
Yeah. But I want to say, there are a lot of great examples like Carmel or Healdsburg or something where we have, taller downtowns that I think can fit very nicely within our town. And I hope Moraga will make the changes that we are pushing them to make. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, are we going to be allowed to make comments later on, or is this our only shot at making comments tonight?
This is the only planned shot to make comments tonight, Mike. But if we need to arrange a meeting, well, we'll do so. At least I'm certainly open to do so.
Yeah, I mean, staff has also stated that, we have until the end of July to submit our comments.
Right.
So we will be doing that too.
Okay, very good. Dave, thank you. Marty, if you let Ellen Beans in, please.
Okay, she's in.
Yep, thank you. Ellen, you need to unmute.
Okay.
There you go. Welcome, Ellen. You're in.
It's Larry instead of Ellen.
Oh, okay.
I take it you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Moraga was not successful in the last housing element cycle in adding housing for all income levels. As the report states, new strategies and requirements are critical in the present cycle to incentivize the actual building of housing that meets the needs of all income levels. Given this reality, we support the draft housing elements rezoning plans, which will allow more apartments and condos in the shopping center areas. There are many people already associated with Moraga who could rent or buy these apartments and spend less time on the roads in and out of town. Adopting an inclusionary housing ordinance also will help ensure that each apartment complex, condo, and townhouse complex has some units that are affordable to our seniors, teachers, young couples, first responders, and employees. We appreciate all the time, efforts to include the community, and extensive analysis has gone into making this draft plan stronger and more effective. The following co-signers are longtime homeowners who live in Moraga, as well as a young couple looking for affordable housing. So the people that have signed this are Sharon Flower, Sheila Fish, Connie Coots, Harry Fish, Carolyn Westhoff, Bobby Preston, myself, Jeff Schwartz, Kyle Marshner, Fred Marshner, Mike Bernhardt, and Megan Arthur. Thank you for your considerations.
Larry, I'm not sure I've seen that letter. If you could get that to the town, I think that ought to go into the record.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry. Marty, if you would let Lisa Walker in, please.
She's in.
Great, thank you so much.
Hi, Lisa. We can hear you.
Awesome.
Welcome.
I just wanted to thank you for letting me speak and opening this up. I just wanted to introduce myself. I was introduced to Moraga when I started my MBA program at St. Mary's. I graduated from there and fell in love with this area enough that I moved back about 3 years ago. What drew me to this was my love of the semi-rural security, the lack of congestion, the natural beauty, and of course the town character. Since living here, and I live very close to the Ream Center on Ascot Drive, one of my biggest concerns, even before this housing element, has been the emergency evacuation. To the point that I had a dear friend who lived up the street from me decide to sell and move out of the area because of that, and the concerns about the road congestions, even with the current residents and only the two main roads out of town. Now, I have been following the requirements for a couple of months now, so I do feel like I understand the situation you put yourself in. I do appreciate all the work that's going into what you're doing. And I don't disagree with some of the ideas behind it, but my biggest concern, as I believe was also noted as most of the input, is the emergency evacuation aspects with the additional housing and the additional number of people. One of the things that I would like to see in the draft plan is more information about how is this going to comply with the emergency evacuation? How is this going to impact that with some of the aspects that are brought in there? We talk about the setback of the roads. Is that going to eliminate or minimize future opportunities and needs to expanding the roads? So that would be one thing I would appreciate some insights into, and see if that could be added into the plan and have some additional information in there about any studies and alignment with the Moraga Fire Department. My second point is in terms of the way the plan is made up between the Ream Center and the Moraga Center, it does seem to be that the propensity of the highest density is located at the Ream Center, and that the moderate density and medium density, I just can't remember the exact terms, are at the Moraga Center. And I'm questioning, does that mean that we're adding more congestion to the already one of the highest congested areas of Moraga, which is the Ascot Drive and many condos here? I can tell you from living here, the parking situation is already difficult. And we've had several accidents right on Moraga Road that fatal accidents that are already indicating the congestion is already a problem. So adding that additional high level of density, in particular, all of the highest density, lowest income at the Ream Center, there's not much in the plan that talks about how that's going to help with congestion, how that's going to be mitigated. So those would be my biggest comments. Again, I appreciate your work on this and understand the constraints and effort that's being put into this.
Lisa, thank you very much. Appreciate your input. Is there anyone else in the public who has not yet spoken who would like to speak? I think I see only one who has not provided input, and Robert's letter was read. So then I'm going to bring it back to the town council, close the public hearing portion of this. Now, normally, in a public hearing, at this point, we would give the applicant the opportunity to respond to public comments. In this case, the town is really the applicant, and I wonder, Cynthia, would you and or staff like to respond in any fashion to what we've heard here tonight? And if not, how might we address their questions?
If there are questions that you would like us to answer, we can go over them. I mean, in terms of like the last caller, there are 2 programs in the Chapter 6 regarding wildfire and evacuation and a plan for a future study. So we talked about many of these things on Monday night. So we're here to answer any further questions that you would like us to clarify. Many of the things that are being presented tonight are policy decisions, and so it's up to the council to decide how to move forward. We have worked hard to incorporate all the comments from the community and stakeholders and developers, and to balance that with state law and everything we know about HCD and what they're requiring for this element. And the draft that we presented to the council, we think did a good job of balancing all those elements.
Okay, so I have at least one question I'd like to pose, and maybe it's to Afshar, and if Afshar has other comments, I'm certainly all ears. It was noted, Afshar, that basis communications with Lafayette, that in fact something more than just a program EIR may be required for this. Do you have any additional information on that?
We are moving forward with a.
You froze, Afshar.
Sorry. We are moving forward with the programmatic EIR. We have shared the timeline and the schedule for accomplishing that. We are currently working on that, and we hope to bring that programmatic EIR back for adoption in November time period.
Yes, the schedule that we provided in the PowerPoint at the last meeting, I think, showed that it was going to be released on October 1st. Is that correct, Barry?
Yeah, and just to add to that, we did have a scoping session for the EIR on February 17th, so that the EIR has actually been underway for quite a long time. There's been a lot of work that's been put in. The traffic counts have been completed. We're doing the modeling now. So a lot of the questions about safety and evacuation will end up being mitigation measures that come out of that EIR. So you will see also edits to the safety element that go concurrently with the housing element that deal with some of the wildfire hazard and evacuation issues. And we've also identified the need in the housing element to continue to work on that as part of the second phase of the general plan update.
Thank you. Lisa Walker, I hope this at least partially addresses your issues on the road and any emergency evacuation is being addressed. And I'm happy to chat with you. You can reach me via my web or my email address at the Moraga website if you'd like to chat further. Okay. It is 7:41. I think per plan, we now are going to go into town council deliberations and comments. And so what I would propose, and I would appreciate the town council giving feedback, and let's agree quickly on a process to follow, is to start with chapter 6, since it is the meat of most of the meat of the element related to the goals and policies and programs, which are going to be incorporated into the general plan. And then and that process might be to go through each goal in order, and each town council member can substantiate, propose changes, make comments. And then as we do that, I would encourage that the other town council members provide input, concurrence. We might have some thumbs up type of responses to make sure that, we don't go through it once and then have to go through it again and again and, several times. Let's do it once. And then I think that there are a couple of things in chapter 5 that we need to address. And at the end of that, we can invite the town council members to provide concluding comments at that point, and then move on to any further actions that are needed prior to actually moving for approval. Teresa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you tell me, are we going through the red line, or are we going to, I would prefer the red line, if you don't mind. That would make
absolutely. Yes, and if we can, it'd be great to be able to put it up on the screen. Do we have that capability?
We do. I do want to just note that the red line is available on the town's website. It was posted yesterday under the agenda item so that people from the audience can follow.
Thank you. Is that okay with everybody? Red line, start at the beginning, work our way through it. Mike?
Yes, I love the process and I get comments at the end. However, I have one macro comment at 1 minute I'd like to say at the beginning because I'm making a request of council members and staff that will affect the program discussion.
Is that okay with everybody?
I mean, I thought we're all going to be giving them our macro comments at the end. I also have macro comments, but I'm going to follow the process of detailed one by one and then macro big picture thoughts.
I agree with Sona.
What I think I'm hearing from Mike is that it's something related to the process itself. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, the deliberations we're about to go through by each program, the comment I'm going to make includes a recommendation to council members and staff. And Mr. Mayor, maybe everybody could get a minute if they wanted, if they had such an item.
How long do you need?
A minute or less.
Everyone willing to give a little confidence to, or leeway to Mike? Let's do it. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. On Monday, I heard a lot about what HCD and the state wants, and will this be acceptable or not to the HCD and the state. What I didn't hear on Monday was anyone say, is this acceptable to the residents? There are HCD requirements that are important and need to be followed, but there's also discretion, and I think some significant discretion in what we submit, and very importantly, how we say it. Do we say promote or do we say information? That's very important. So my request, and the reason I asked to do this at the beginning, I'd like to ask my fellow town council members and staff, let's remember who we work for. We're here to represent all stakeholders, which includes developers, but HCD has a lot of development emphasis. Let's make sure we represent the residents that we work for. Let's be advocates for our residents for what they want, a semi-rural town, preserve the character, and follow the general plan policies. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm showing you at 57 seconds. So, let's get to it. Everybody ready? Have you got your red lines?
Yep.
What did I do?
So just to clarify, this is Barry, and I've just shared my screen and brought up the red line edit. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of Chapter 6, and if I can verify, Mayor Walke, if this is what you would like me to be doing right now, is to be scrolling through the document, pausing as we go through each program.
Sure. And if each town council member would be willing to verbalize to stop when you want the Barry to stop, so we can discuss something. Go for it. Let's do it.
Wait,
Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, I cannot read this. I'm on my iPhone, so that might be the problem. But any way to make that bigger?
How about that?
Okay, and I have my iPad next to me, so I'll try to follow. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so we're under goal 1 now, and the policies on the first page have not been changed since the draft that you saw on Monday.
Very good.
First change, I believe, appears here on the general plan update. And we've deleted the word comprehensive.
Okay, good.
And this just expresses that the phase 2 is amendments as needed to keep the plan current, internally consistent, and compliant with all state laws.
Thank you.
We also have edited A and B, and under A, rather than saying revise higher density categories, it simply says to align categories to recognize existing patterns of development and the opportunities for higher density and mixed use in Ream and Moraga Center. And then you can see the language that's been stricken out about policies in the plan being affirming and supporting of multiple housing types. And the focus here is on directing growth to the 2 shopping centers while protecting established low density neighborhoods.
Great, thank you. If we could stop at program 2A for just a minute.
Sure.
At the end of the first paragraph. And I see
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
Well, I saw Sona's hand first, Mike.
Thank you.
Then I'll go to you.
I've been raising my hand to make a point about the general plan update 2A, 2B. So can I speak about that at this time?
Sure.
So in reading this with the red lines, because a lot was stricken from B, it now just restates the point in A, which is to focus and find opportunities for denser development in Ream and Moraga Center. And not only is a repetition seem unnecessary, but there's an addition that seems to contradict a lot of the points in the below overall programs that we're trying to make, which is the addition of this word, of this phrase, protecting. You know, protect is a really strong word. We've zoned areas near low density neighborhoods, like around School Street, where there's currently office spaces. We've made decisions to consider potentially opening up residential development in those areas. So while that may change the look and feel of the neighborhood, we don't know how it will evolve, but we've committed to that. So we shouldn't be contradicting ourselves. And I feel that addition is a strong statement.
How would you propose to change this?
Well, I feel that because A and B are repetitive, we could just keep A and we don't need anything in B. That the addition in B is contradictory, and everybody else wants everything else strucken out. So we just keep A.
Are there other comments? My comment is I don't see them as duplicative. The second one is really just basically saying let's not ignore the lower density neighborhoods that are away from the center areas and give them due concern. Do others have thoughts on this? Teresa?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. Sona, that's very interesting. My question, I guess, kind of to staff is, does this, I mean, it feels good to read B, but does it send up a red flag to the state? I mean, as a resident, I like seeing that we're directing the town's growth to Ream and Moraga Center. That's what we've all been trying to do. Is there a problem with that?
We say it in A as well, but yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Barry. Go ahead.
I was going to respond to Councilmember Rocker's comment just to say the word protecting could be a bit of a red flag for HCD. I don't know that they're going to be reading it at that granular of a level. But if you used a term like while respecting low density neighborhoods or something that might be a little bit more middle ground.
Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with that, Sona?
Yeah.
Can we have you have a comment, quick comment, or your thumbs up? Let's have a show of thumbs. Okay, we're gonna do that.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
Do? Excuse me, what did we just do?
The word protecting low density neighborhoods was replaced with respecting low density neighborhoods.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And Mike, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I had a hand up in relation to program 1 here. So I really like the edits and I like the ones that you did for each letter. But what remains in phase 2 at the beginning says phase 2 includes updates to the remaining elements of the plan. And that to me, program
right where the cursor is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. So phase 2 includes updates to the remaining elements of the plan. That to me implies the comprehensive update that we decided not to do. So I would take that phrase out and just say phase 2 includes additional amendments as needed to keep the plan current, internally consistent, and compliant with state law. I'd also like to add one phrase which would say, quote, while retaining the existing values and vision of the general plan, end quote.
Would you repeat that once again, and then let's have a vote on it, unless there's other comments?
Right. So my revision would read as follows: phase 2 includes additional amendments as needed to keep the plan current, internally consistent, and compliant with all state laws, while retaining the existing values and vision of the general plan.
So you have a little bit of additional wording, and you take out includes updates to the remaining elements of the plan. And
yes,
any thoughts on that? And otherwise, let's have you guys willing to do a vote?
No.
No, you've got to no.
I am not in support of the second half, the addition. I'm in support of the deletion, but not the addition.
Same.
Can you live with that, Mike?
I'd like to stick with the original. I'd like to hear from Teresa.
It's funny you'd say that because I was thinking I want to hear from Barry.
I'm not going to touch this one.
You're not. I don't know that it's necessary. I love it, but I don't know that it's necessary.
Mike, yeah, I'm gonna say to not include it simply because to give a little bit of latitude.
Okay, I agree with the idea of approve the deletion, exclude the addition. That's what I heard. Yeah, by the way, I cannot see thumbs up from people, so just so you know.
Oh.
Audible thumbs up. Speaking thumb.
Half a thumb.
Well, it's better than middle finger, you know.
That's for sure.
If we go on to program 2 and 2A, and I just want to make a comment, and this is more of a editorial comment, you know, where we say down at the bottom, ministerial paren by right, close paren approval. I have, you know, I support, and this is reference, you know, we've got 3 references to ministerial, I think it's 3 references to ministerial approval in this. And I support ministerial approval, but within limits. And it needs to be focused on things that are low risk. And when I see, you know, actual developments ministerial, I have a real problem with that, because ministerial to me sounds like one person making the judgment based upon objective guidelines, as objective as they can be, which they, you know, when we're talking about individual developments, there is no such thing as totally objective. And then when you put the responsibility on one person to make that judgment, and actually that person doesn't live in town often, I have problems that, including with real experience, where I've had staff tell me that, well, because they've experienced something in Pete, or actually in Berkeley, it's okay here in Moraga, and so that's not the way this town is set up. I mean, we have a planning commission with residents, and the town council has residents, and we have certain perspectives. So, you know, I understand that staff and maybe HCD is pushing us towards ministerial approvals as much as we can, but right now this is pretty broad, and so I'm having trouble with it, to be honest with you. Anyone else? If no one else is, let's move on. No? Okay.
Well, so, through the chair, I'd like to just kind of clarify where this comes from. This is currently in the Moraga Center specific plan. And you are correct. We are also trying to, in order for us to make these developable, we have to make them
You're breaking up.
control. We do have local control. The local control comes in the form of the Planning Commission reviewing the overall design. So ministerial means, for example, let's say they meet the setback, or they meet like a height requirement. But in terms of the design, it would come back to the Planning Commission. If they are asking for any waivers, it would come to the Planning Commission and perhaps even Town Council. So that it is ministerial, but it's not broad. It has limitations already built in.
Right. So if that's the way it actually ends up being applied, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good
Larry,
question.
I think we got authorization to move forward.
Okay. And we've clarified, I'll make a global statement here that under potential funding sources, we've adjusted that throughout this document to clarify that some of these items are funded through the Comprehensive Advanced Planning Initiative that's already underway, and some of them are regular staff functions that are already being performed and don't require an allocation of general fund dollars in the way that was maybe implied in the earlier version. So this was also a Program 3 change for funding.
Right. At the beginning of Program 4, that's the first sentence here. It's first total real sentence, which starts within 24 months of housing element adoption. Adopt the following additional revisions to the existing zoning regulations, or is that incorrect?
These would be revisions to the existing zoning regulations, yes.
So should we put existing in there? Do we need to?
I'm happy to do that if that's the preference of the council.
Hey, am I out in the wilderness again?
No, I think that's good.
It's fine.
Okay,
Agree.
thank you.
Okay, and there were no comments. So here, there was a direct recommendation in the last draft to move the town's FAR standards from the guidelines to the municipal code, and we have changed that to say, analyze the residential FAR standards, ensure they are objective, and consider moving them from the design guidelines to the municipal code.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
may I just bookmark something, Barry?
Sure.
That language needs to be carried over to chapter 5
Okay,
because it's not consistent with chapter 5. I like this one, and I think it's consistent with the comments that were made by council members and by Mr. Berzoni on Monday night. But we need to make sure that it's consistent throughout the document.
we will do
And
that.
I've lost my notes on where that is. I wrote the page number, and when I find it, I'll let you know. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, program 5 has been edited in response to comments from the town council on Monday, which implied that it was the town's responsibility to ensure that we were producing a particular volume of housing. And so we struck the sentence that says if after 4 years development is falling short of anticipated levels, and instead simply said, depending on the level of development activity, consider additional zoning changes midway through the planning period.
Everyone okay? Yep,
No. Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
may I?
sure.
I have a little bit of an issue with the word monitoring. To me, it implies some sort of regime of, tracking and constant updating. Can we, and I think, Steve, you made this point on Monday night, or maybe it was Mike, about, what's the cost of these monitoring programs? Could one just simply replace monitoring with a word like activity? Moraga Center and Ream Center development activity, because is that not that's what we say later, but I would be more comfortable removing monitoring.
Yeah, I agree with that comment. There's a couple places of monitoring, and activity sounds pretty good to me, if that's okay with staff.
And if I can provide my input here, I also had problems with monitoring, although that was one of those that I was going to do a giveaway. As much as possible, we should depend upon the commercial information that's available to us through commercial real estate agencies and what have you, so that maybe we don't have to do all this monitoring ourselves. But I'm fine with activity. Any problems with other town council members on that change? Teresa?
Yeah, I'd like to know from Afsha, are we stepping on toes, or is this the right direction, or what do you think about that?
Thank you for asking, council member. To me, all it means is that staff will continue to look at Moraga Center, Ream Center, and that we can come back and report to council and provide council an update and say, here's, we've been working with developers, or we've been working with, residents, or we've been working with retailers, and here's information that we are sharing with you. So, and, when it says annual housing progress report, that's kind of key. We do have to do that on an annual basis.
Right.
Sorry, where's the progress report piece? Sorry.
Program 5,
Yeah,
as part of the annual housing
coming up.
progress report.
Oh, the first sentence, not the red line. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is, yeah.
By committing to making changes midway through, we're still indicating a level of accountability that we're going to take. So that, to me, that's what's most important. Whether it's monitoring or activity is fine, but I think we have to express a level of taking accountability.
So you're okay?
I would be fine with activity instead of monitoring.
Okay,
you.
so it looks like we've got consensus on this. Let's move forward. Under program 6, we got the same issue. Should that, nope, up, you just passed it. We've got monitoring again. Should we make that activity also?
In this case, this is a statutory requirement through AB 166. That doesn't mean you need to use the word monitoring, but if there's a different word like tracking, maybe just as objectionable. I don't know if there's a preference, but you are actually legally required to keep track of the availability of sites in the town at all times.
I'm okay with leaving it as is. Others? Okay with leaving it as? I'm seeing shaking heads.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah,
see.
and this is a carryover from this is not new.
Right.
Good point. Thank you.
And I have another issue on 6, program 6.
Okay.
So once again, I think it's important to emphasize our role as zoning, and I know this is a carryover, so where was I 8 years ago? But there's a couple references that the town will insure. And well, what are we insuring? And I want to make sure we're insuring the zoning because we're not developers. So let me give you the examples where I put the word zoning in. And help me with the cursor, Barry, if you could. Consistent with AB 166, the town shall monitor development activity on all housing opportunity sites identified by this element to ensure that the capacity to meet the regional housing, I'd like to say, to ensure that the zoning capacity to meet the regional housing. If you see what my point of what I'm trying to do there. And then the third line from the bottom, it starts site, the town will ensure that sufficient sites remain in the inventory. And I'd like to say that the town will ensure that sufficient zone sites remain in the inventory, trying to emphasize the zoning role.
Yeah, it's oh, okay. Excuse me. Barry, what do you think?
That's fine. I think that there's no problem for
this one. I look to your expertise on this one.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
No one's yakking.
So we have no comments on 7. Here's the annual progress report.
Right.
Now we're into goal 2. And the policies, which are mostly carryover.
A point of order here again. It's the same type of thing on goal each 2.1. The town shall ensure that new residential developments provide a wide range of housing to meet the various needs. Again, I'd like to say put zoning in there. The town shall ensure that insert the zoning for new residential developments provide the town with a wide range of same concept.
I agree. I agree.
Hey.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Barry Afshar, if we are changing existing language, carryover language, is that shining a light on them?
I would say not in this instance because
Okay.
I don't believe this edit substantively changes the direction of the policy.
Do you promise to tell us if we're doing that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I look at it. We have to produce a consistent end product, so that's
yeah.
I have a question as well.
Yes.
For Barry. So, like calling out zoning, but we're doing more than zoning. I mean, we're looking at inclusionary policies. Wow, there's policies, and then there's actual changes to zoning. So does that narrow the meaning of this sentence because we're just now only referring to zoning?
You could argue that it does because it's possible there could be building code restrictions for some of the other types that the town adopts, but I don't think that's going to be a problem on this particular policy. Someone may be able to make that argument, but I think this is a pretty benign change, I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
When we get to, oh,
Right there.
okay.
May I,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
You bet. Yeah, absolutely.
Barry, Program 9, support use of state density bonus law. It's been brought to our attention, and I don't disagree with this comment, that support can mean a variety of things to people, and including but not limited to financial support, which is clearly not our intention. I am wondering if, and again, it may be appropriate in certain instances, but would it be better here, instead of say support, to say facilitate? Which does not imply that there will be some financial commitment on the part of the town?
That's an acceptable edit from my perspective. I would see if the other councilors.
I would just add, we talked about promote on Monday, and we wanted to take promote out. And Barry, you had mentioned facilitate, which still bothered me a little bit. Facilitate and promote are synonyms. So, one is the other. So facilitate, one could argue facilitate includes, financial measures as well. I'm open because I get your point, Renata, but I'd like to use a word other than facilitate.
What do you suggest?
I'm not sure, but if I read, what is this telling us? The town, and in fact, I like this as an example. We have all these laws. What's our position? We don't promote, we don't facilitate, we don't oppose. But one of the things we do is provide information. So this one sentence, the town will inform developers of the opportunity to apply for density bonus. So we're providing information, which I think is exactly what we should do. So now what do we put in the title? I'm not sure. Provide information. I would, if that would fly, I would certainly support that.
If I might suggest an edit here, I have the advantage of controlling the keyboard here. So if we were to just say use state density bonus law, I don't know if that.
Perfect.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Barry.
Okay.
Okay. I have the same issue on page 6-8, program 11.
But,
we're
Mr.
not
Mayor,
past
I'm
10 yet.
sorry. Before we leave
Yeah.
9, I had one more thing.
Sure.
My apologies. Barry, on the sentence that carries over, the town will inform developers of the opportunity to apply for density bonuses early in the review process, blah, 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 and the opportunity for waivers and concessions. Is leaving waivers inconsistent with the direction that we provided Monday night, that we would consider deferrals, but not waivers?
So these are waivers and concessions of development standards. And if that needs to be clarified, we can say that here.
Yes. Would that be acceptable to my fellow council members? I'd like that clarification.
I think that's a really good ad, Renata.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We did edit program 10 in response to comments from the council on Monday to focus on affordable senior housing development, including the references you see plus that last sentence.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
First of all, I just want to generally express appreciation for this red line and for how responsive it is to the comments we made Monday night. And then, you know what? I just caught a word. Never mind. I withdraw. I don't have any further comment on this. Thank you.
I'd like to say good job on 10.
Okay.
On program 11 here.
One thing, Mr. Mayor, if I can add on 10, I think, this is great. Just a question, but when we emphasize at the last sentence, opportunities for affordable senior housing are a priority and strongly encouraged, but aren't we saying that they're both the priority, just affordable housing and affordable senior housing? But at the end, it seems to tie up that it's only one that is a priority.
Well, yeah, I would say we identified in the needs analysis that low-income seniors were one of the largest special needs group in the town and should be a priority and called out in that way. So I think that's where this is coming from.
Okay. Thank you. This is just clarifications.
Sure.
Okay. So program 11, there's another opportunity where we're using facilitate, but now we're under A and B, we're supporting additional Section 8 subsidies. And do we need to better define what we mean by support? And likewise in B, participating in future issuance of revenue bonds? Are we committing ourselves through those two?
Do we need legal in on this?
I think.
There she is.
Sharon, do you have any comments on this, or is this really still more just a more business decision?
This is likely more of a business decision in terms of the language. What we're talking about here in general is obviously changing some of the verbiage in here, but the overall intent is to work with developers in providing affordable housing subsidies. So the language that you choose to use, or if there are any edits, I can comment on those.
Mr. Mayor, may I jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, I flagged this on Monday. This is one of my subsidy items. So the issue I had mentioned is the town shall seek to increase the availability of federal, state, county, and local financial assistance. And somebody, whether we mean Moraga or not, that can easily be interpreted and say, okay, Moraga, local financial assistance, how much have you subsidized housing for? I think we should take local financial out. So this then reads as, we will increase the availability of federal, state, and county. And I think it sort of separates us from being involved.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just to piggyback on Mike, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity to talk. This is a carryover, right? But I guess when we say the town shall seek to increase the availability of federal, state, and county financial assistance, that suggests that we need to be out lobbying the federal and state and county government for greater financial assistance. Should this not read, the town shall, somehow provide developers with access to, or the town shall encourage access to federal, state, and county financial assistance.
And information.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's information as well. So I like Renata's point even better, to rephrase it, and I would still take out local financial.
I would too, Mike. I agree with you on that. But I think this is just worded in a way that suggests that we are going to be doing something we're not.
Right.
Have no intention of doing.
I agree. Do you want to take a stab at how you would rephrase the first part? You're so good at this.
Yeah. So could it be the town shall seek to inform the availability of federal, state, county financial assistance for affordable housing in Moraga through the following actions?
That's a good start. How do the others think?
Through the chair, if I may, I have worked on the recent grants that have been provided to cities, and the state and the federal government are directly partnering with local cities on affordable housing. So I think maybe I understand what you're saying, but it's not directly to developers or directly to property owners. they're actually partnering with cities in order to get those grants to for a variety of affordable housing.
You're coming back to enjoying the word facilitate.
Well, I don't mind that in this case in the heading, but when we actually start to say the town shall seek to increase the availability, I get Renata's point, and I think that should be rephrased.
You could repeat what's in the title here and just say the town shall facilitate access to federal, state, and county financial assistance. I don't know if that's any better.
Well, I think it does then also incorporate what Afsha just explained, because if we are active in that, then, you know, that is facilitation.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
And the subheadings too also describe the actions that will be taken, so that there is the specificity down there explaining what's meant by the first sentence.
Yeah, I want to look at those two, though, and make sure we got the wording correct. Let's see, it's
So on A, supporting additional Section 8 subsidies, what does that really mean?
So what that means is that the supply of housing choice vouchers is limited and going down, and there's a lot of interest across the state of California to reverse that trend and make those vouchers more available. So this is a statement you'll find in a lot of housing elements right now, just saying that that's a good form of supporting access to housing by low-income people, and also a good way of affirmatively furthering fair housing. I know we don't say all of that here, but
yeah.
I see encourage instead of support.
I like that better.
Okay. I can go with that.
Well,
No.
or how about lobby for? Now,
Well,
maybe
I
that's
we
too
don't lobby.
specific.
No lobbying.
You know what? No lobby.
No lobbying.
Through the chair, I just want to recognize that these programs are done through the county. So it's not done by the town of Moraga. So we would be supporting.
And okay, so could we also mention additional county Section 8 subsidies, just to make sure it's clear it's not Moraga subsidies?
Yeah, I like that. That would solve that problem, I think.
Well, Afsha, are these usually? Is there usually a co-funding requirement?
No, I don't believe so. No.
there's not for Section 8. And we would probably want to clarify that I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the agency. It's the County Housing Authority, as opposed to just saying the county.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to put that in for now. And Stephanie, chime in too, because I know you have some insights into this as well.
Everyone okay with A? So let's move on to B if we can.
Yeah, and the key thing is participating.
May I ask
again,
a foundational question? Do we need A through D?
I would love to take those.
You know, this is an existing program in the current housing element, which basically says you're going to look for with the deletion of local, you're going to look for non-local funding to do some of your programs. So I would think if you're going to remove this, you would need something that talks about how you might look for funding for to achieve some of the other objectives.
Because I have an issue with D, so actually, Renata, what you're saying would be music to my ears. I get your point, though, Barry.
You know, it seems like what we read in the ABAG email that we got earlier was that they want to know how we're going to do these things.
Yeah.
And this says how we're going to do it. So rather than have it thrown back at us, I think we need to stick with these, but make it so that it works for us.
And correct me, Barry, this also helps to meet the AFFH requirements directly.
Letter
how
A,
we-
letter A in particular does.
Yeah, and how we would carry out an action, yes.
What if we used in B the encouraged word again? We will encourage mortgage revenue bonds or mortgage tax credits by Contra Costa County to support. So it's clear who it's going to come from, and all we're doing is encouraging.
They be more receptive to the word facilitate there?
No, I think this is something the county does anyway. So all you would be doing is saying you would make your residents aware of the opportunity that there's tax credits for first-time home buyers.
Okay.
But you can
or inform.
Encourage it does work.
Okay. Barry says it's works.
If it's preferable to you, that I think.
So then C should start off with assist instead of assisting, if we're going to use assist.
So assist developers.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's make sure our verbs are consistent with tenses.
Well, then we got to go support.
But not tonight, please.
Right.
Yeah, this is cleanup for after tonight.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to do the semicolon discussion again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Was there an edit that was needed in letter D?
Yes, please. So, and I know Renata, you are part of this, so you can give us some insight. So, we have the La Marinda organization, but, there's also reference here is the town will consider these waivers for eligible developments. And I think we said we don't want subsidies. I can also tell you what Moraga has received. Our LFFA fund has $464,000 today to be used for Moraga transportation projects. And we budgeted $123,000 in next year's budget. So we are actively using that money for the specific transportation needs. So I would delete it. If you leave it, somehow we have to say it's La Marinda, not Moraga, and I fear people might get confused.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
All right, so this is that there's a couple things going on in this one, and I don't have a problem with supporting modifications to LFFA impact fees for affordable housing developments. That's something that it's a La Marinda thing, and if it makes sense, then it's not our dollars. I hear you, Mike, that we don't want to reduce the kitty that's available for transportation projects and other things that are available. I am wondering if the last sentence should just come out.
Yeah, I would go
the last two. How about taking out the last two sentences?
Yeah, I mean the second sentence is simply descriptive. It just says what the committee allows, but it doesn't really add anything.
Right, yeah, so what if we keep the first sentence and delete the second and third?
The second, I would be in favor of that.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Keep it simple if we can.
That's a good one. Put that in there.
So supporting a county bond, I guess that's okay. Well, is that okay? Advocating?
I can't read it from here. So
I think supporting is probably better here, Steve. Advocating, I think it requires us. What if we don't agree with it?
Then we wouldn't be supporting it. I mean, it looks like we're supporting it whether we agree with it or not. Could it be like looking into? I know that's not the right word.
Well, or
possibly supporting.
I like that word encourage again.
Yeah, you could just say encourage a county bond measure for affordable housing.
But doesn't that mean that we're lobbying the county to do something?
May I make a suggestion? Can we just make this broader and just say support county programs directed at affordable housing?
That's fine too.
Good.
Because I don't think it's just bond, right? I mean, there's there you go.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
You know, I must say, I'm feeling so much more comfortable about this tonight than I was Monday night. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and our internet's working.
That's right. That might have something to do with it.
Okay. There were no changes to 12, and on 13 we added this clarification that co-housing can also be an affordable housing option for older adults.
Do we have to say older adults? Can we just say adults?
Oh, sure.
Well, but we identify senior as a opportunity group, so to speak.
And Barry, why did you choose older adults here instead of seniors?
It's sort of the preferred terminology now in housing elements. At least that's what I've been told. I think seniors is a defined class that starts at 65 and goes up, and older adults is a little bit broader.
I think since this sentence comes after where we end a sentence with St. Mary's students, having a qualifier in there is a good thing.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I agree. And I like older adults more than seniors, since I am one of those.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, Mr. Mayor,
Not me. Yeah.
Before we go on to goal 3 section, we're 2 hours in. Should we maybe take 5 minutes?
How do the others feel? 2 hours is 5 minutes, everybody?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5 minutes, so it's about at 22:02. Sorry, Barry. Yes, please share your screen. Sorry about that.
No worries. And we're just at the beginning of goal 3. And there were 2 policies that were at the end that have been made policies 1 and 2 in response to the feedback we got Monday.
Very good.
Okay. This was the addition made by the Planning Commission.
Did we pass goal, the old goal 3.2? Affordable housing in areas of opportunity?
It's now 3.4.
Oh, yes, we did.
Okay, I'd like to talk about that. This goes back to, there's the word promoting here. So the town shall support the provision of affordable housing in areas that provide access to opportunities, including by promoting inclusionary housing, ADUs, SB9 developments, and room rentals. So I would either take ADUs and SB9 developments out of there, or leave it and change the word promoting to encourage. By encouraging inclusionary housing, ADUs, SB9.
I would support that. Anybody else?
I'm
So
fine with that.
May I just clarification? So it's just changing the word promoting to encouraging?
Encouraging. It could be either. I would ask Barry which would come across better to HC.
I think either of those words will, either of those will work.
I'm fine.
And I would take out ADUs and SB9 because that really, those are 2 multifamily laws that are sort of hot buttons for residents.
If I may, you may want to leave ADUs in. I don't know if that's acceptable to you, but the reason being that you're counting ADUs toward your RENA. You're not counting any SB9 units, but we are assuming 4 ADUs per year are going to be built. So,
Okay. Then I would take out.
Sorry, Mike.
See, my only point is ADUs allow up to 3 residential units. The main unit, 1 ADU, and 1 junior ADU. So SB9 allows 6 units up to ADUs or up to 3. So from a resident perspective, that is multifamily housing. So I get your point, Barry. We're counting it, right? So maybe we should go back to changing the word promoting to encouraging, informing.
Encouraging.
He's made that change, Mike.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, then we're done.
But Mike, you said take out SB9. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
I think that could be problematic for the state.
So Barry,
because ADUs and SB9 are the comment letters laser focus on those.
So I can't see the screen, but if we've changed promoting to encouraging, I can go along.
okay.
but still, I have the question: can you take out SB9? I mean, clearly, residents do not want it, and if it doesn't address our arena numbers, why have it in there? Unless we have to.
That's a good point. Unless you think it draws a flag.
Well, I would say in this instance, in this context, you could take it out. I don't think it's going to be a red flag if it's not in this particular policy.
Then I say take it out.
If it's a red flag for HCD, well then they'll flag it, and
Yeah. But he
because
said it should be, so I would take it out.
I would just, through the chair, I would just like to ask our legal counsel, because it is the law, and it is a type, I'd like to get their input on this, please.
Of course. I think in this case, as noted by Mr. Miller, we're including some examples in here. So if you leave ADUs in here, I think it would be fine to delete the SB9 developments at this point during the review.
What I would say is where we really need it is in the programs. I would not delete it in the programs, but in this policy statement, it's a higher level.
Right.
And so it is, it's more critical in the programs.
Okay, are we good to move forward, everybody? Let's do that.
Deleting SB 9.
Did.
Correct.
Okay, and then there are these deletions that
Okay,
occur.
wait, Barry?
Yep.
The public transportation to housing sites. Two issues. One is the use of the word support, because that again suggests a financial commitment, and public transportation service is really, I mean, we can make it, we can make shuttles and so forth a condition of approval, but a lot of this is outside of our control.
So
I don't want to. I'm sorry. So I would say encourage.
I think that could be our favorite word of the night.
Okay.
Okay.
Here, this is the same language that was in earlier, but it was moved from the last program in the series to the first program in the series.
Right. Okay.
And we got a lot of comments and emails on this, so it's good.
With respect to the inclusionary zoning, the language was softened a bit, and it now, instead of saying adopt an inclusionary housing ordinance, it says develop an inclusionary housing ordinance for town council consideration, and a shall was replaced with a should in this instance.
Could somebody call out the programs as we're going through? I'm having trouble following.
Yes, this was former program 14 renumbered as 15.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Okay, under the next one, we're facilitating ADU production, and we've deleted the reference to an informational brochure, and we've indicated that waivers would only be provided for where they're mandated by the state, so fee reductions and state mandated waivers. This specifically is related to impact fees, which cannot be charged for certain types of ADUs.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment? I have a couple on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we agreed, the idea of we didn't want to promote SB 9, and I don't think we want to necessarily promote in the programs as ADUs. Under the premise, it's a different version of multifamily housing that our residents don't want. So Barry, you mentioned the word facilitate on Monday. So I thought about that and actually looked it up, and facilitate is actually a synonym for promote. So I look at this and I say, well, what is the program? We want to streamline ADU approvals. Absolutely. And then if you look at B, we want to have a website to inform property owners. So we want to provide information. So I said, what if let's put that in the title, which is, I'm suggesting the title would read, streamline process and provide information for ADU production. That, I think, is more indicative of what we're doing, and I think it'll resonate more with people. It's a law. We will follow the law. We'll streamline our process, and we provide information. That's what we do with law, and that's what we said under the density bonus. We will inform people of the law. So I'd like to suggest that for a title.
How do others feel? I don't like the additional words, but that we're replacing facilitate with 5 or 6 words, but I can go with it, I guess.
Why can't we just say ADU production?
Sure.
For the title, yeah.
For the title.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay. And then the details, explain the details. The only thing I wanted to ask you about Barry and C, I was talking to staff, in the way C reads, there's 2 pieces, maintain existing fee reductions and state mandated waivers. So it sounds like the first part of that isn't state mandated, and I think I'd heard from staff, well, actually, both of these are state mandated. So is it true all of this is state mandated?
There are reduced fee requirements. Yeah, you can only charge proportionally to the size of the ADU. So it could be the state mandated goes up here.
Yes.
If that's
Maintain, put it at the beginning, maintain state mandated existing fee reductions and waivers. So people know, hey, it's not Moraga. We're not providing waivers on this. The state, we have to follow state mandates.
I'm just going to suggest the word existing come out there.
Okay.
May I make another suggestion, just in the taking words out? Why can't we just say ADU production, the town shall take the following actions?
Sounds good, as long as there's no weight test to this. All right. Who's got the doggy?
I do.
All right.
He's outside.
Oh, he's not happy.
Okay, shall I continue? All right, and then there's okay, we're up to monitoring here.
Is this the right word for monitoring, or?
If you feel like there's a different term you'd like to use here, this is really just keeping track of how many ADUs we have and just basic data.
Yeah,
I guess
this is something that I would just like to say, it's a planning department function. As the planning director, and I've been watching this, this is something that we do. So I don't know how otherwise to describe it.
What about tracking?
Yeah, tracking would work too. Tracking, monitoring, either way.
Yeah, I had shared with staff that monitoring almost sounded like policing, so tracking sounds better.
Which is what we use in the last sentence here, tracked. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Good. Oh, okay. Boy, now we get to.
Oops. Just skipping right past SB 9.
Was that Freudian, Barry?
So can I nominate that we just remove the word facilitate at the and just say SB 9 projects?
I think I like how it's written. Again, process including objective standards around applications, includes public information, links. I really like how it's phrased. So yeah, let's be consistent with what we just did on ADUs.
Okay. Everybody okay? Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay. So shared housing, that's just a clarification that shared is a word missing. Okay. Rooms for rent is an existing program. Then the public realm plan, this was this edit appeared on Monday as well. This was a planning commission edit. Defining the Ream Center.
Okay.
Barry?
Yes.
A couple questions came up about what is a public realm plan. Can you just briefly describe what that is so the public can understand here?
Sure. For a long time, the recommendation in the general plan was to prepare a specific plan for the Ream Center, which would be zoning plus public improvements, how streets are managed, circulation, public space, and so forth. We're doing the zoning part now through this comprehensive planning initiative. We're doing the objective standards for development, the design standards. What we're not doing is dealing with the public space that's left over. So this is really a plan for how the streetscape is managed, how you want the public spaces to be managed and look, and that's the intent here. So it would address circulation, pedestrian circulation, bicycle circulation, streets, etc. And we're looking for grant funding for this action.
Yep.
Okay.
On this one here on family supportive services by right in high density, I'm going to ask the question again. Are we taking away too much control from the community in this? Because if the way I read this is, in a, high density, probably a Moraga Center specific plan area. If you got someone living up above, someone can throw, family supportive, whatever down below, including, a gymboree or something of that nature, and they have no say on the matter. Stakeholder engagement. We've learned some lessons on that the last couple of years, and I'm not sure I've got a clear answer on this one, Afsha and Barry, but I think we have to. It isn't a black and white thing, black or white.
Sure. Thank you for that question. It's an excellent question. These are supportive services such as childcare that support families who may be living in high density or mixed use zones.
Right.
And it's already allowed in the Moraga Center specific plan as well. We allow certain uses as of right. So we're just acknowledging that. And, I would say it's like a preschool or adult senior care facility or adult, or like a senior community center. That's what we're really talking about here. We're not talking about bars and restaurants or noise.
Yeah, well, it says family supportive. I understand that, but some, like a dance studio or something could certainly be disruptive to a residence above it. But anyway, if I'm the only one who's excited about this, let's move on. I don't want to put you to sleep.
I've got a question about that. I don't know, hearing Steve, maybe I do know now, but I'm not sure why we crossed out and community gathering spaces. Does anybody have a recollection why we crossed that out? Because it doesn't appear that we will have very many opportunities for community gatherings and spaces. And so, I think that might be something very beneficial to a high density area.
We can certainly restore it.
May I just add the suggestion that it be public community gathering spaces?
Yeah.
You'd be concerned that if you have something that has evening meetings and a community gathering spot, that would be worse than a gymboree or something of that nature, which would operate probably only during the day.
But it would also give them opportunities to go somewhere else for something. If you're living in an apartment, and there's a gathering area below, that might be a nice place to go to get out of your space.
Right. I'm not seeing a lot of energy on this.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's back in anyway. Thank you.
I think if I can add,
I sure lost on that one.
I would also add on this too that there's limited demand for ground floor retail space in all of these mixed use areas. And if someone comes in and says, instead of providing stores or restaurants, which there's a limited demand for, can we provide a recreation room for the building? And that's, I think, a place where you want to be able to say yes.
Well, provided that the floor between the first and second floors is appropriately insulated.
Right.
I agree, but that doesn't. There's no guarantee that's going to be the case. Okay.
Okay. On the next one, we removed the reference to pamphlets in both cases, in the time frame and in the text. Then we have the program that was moved forward, which brings us to goal 4. And I'll just keep scrolling through here. And now we're up to program 26. That's an editorial change. Okay, no comments on the parking discussion. Development review.
Barry, I'm sorry I was on mute. Could we talk about goal 4.4 for a minute? I'm sorry here, but I had to move my office. I had a power outage. I noticed, because I know people did want to add reference to the general plan at the beginning, but I noticed in the program for scenic corridor, there is a reference to the general plan, right? General plan policies. So for 4, I was wondering, could we say, we talk about development, but and consistent with the general plan policies?
So in other words, you're suggesting that ensure the town's processes and requirements, et cetera, somehow there's a reference to the general plan?
Correct. At the end, it would say, and is consistent with general plan policy. So we're talking about that we do not want to unduly constrain the development of affordable market rate and special needs housing, and is consistent with general plan policy. So to me, there's a balance here. We want to develop as much as we can, but we want to keep our general plan because that's what our people want us to do.
So, Mike, this is sort of like the previous case where I would argue that we don't need to say that because we are in the general plan here, and the general plan should be, a pretty basic document for everything in the town. And now the reality is the general plan, covers a whole lot of stuff, and you got to use it intelligently. And if you read the front section of it, it talks about that. But
okay, I don't
think we have to call it out.
Right, I saw it in the program. I'll drop it. Let's move on.
Okay, there's a legal requirement for internal consistency in the general plan also. Okay, so we were down below this one.
And Barry, can you call out where we are?
Sure. We are now looking at program 29, where there was a reference to fee waivers that's been deleted.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So it does refer to deferred fees, but not to reduced or waived fees.
Right.
Okay. The edit to program 31 was from the Planning Commission, and that was to say the town will actively pursue grant funding for infrastructure.
Okay.
Now this brings us to scenic corridor regulations. And this is the edit that was also recommended by the Planning Commission. So it does not say amend the scenic corridor regulations. It says review them to consider for modified setbacks and possible waivers on designated housing opportunity sites.
Right. And actually, I really like what are we doing? We're reviewing and we're going to consider. So I really like the way that was phrased. Thank you, Planning Commission and Barry. The one that I think we went a little too far was the next sentence. The specific criteria for reduced setbacks would be consistent with state law and include objective standards for allowing projects in the Moraga Center and Ream areas to be closer to the roadways. I think we should end that center after include objective standards, because you're sort of suggesting an answer here. And at the end of the day, the process is review, consider, consistent with state law and objective standards. And we may or may not adjust that. And it seems to set an expectation with me when it keeps on going. So that would be my suggestion.
I don't know what closer means in this case. Closer than what? So I agree with Mike that we need to do something here.
I think that I agree that presumes an outcome. So, and we already say specific criteria for reduced setbacks would be consistent with state law and would include objective standards. I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, period. Yeah, that's it. And you're keeping us out of trouble, Barry, man.
So far.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Okay. I don't believe there were any comments on the policy on the MCSP implementation, building code review. the letter to the water and sewer service providers. Okay, what was goal 7 was moved up to goal 5 in response to public comment and comment from the council as well. Oops.
Right.
And then there were, these are the same policies that were there previously. Program 36 was edited to refer to sustainable residential development and not directly reference the climate action plan.
Good.
Okay, I'll keep going through this one.
And which program, Barry?
This one used to be 42 and is now called Program 36.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And we're just about on to goal 6, Mike.
Right.
Okay.
So goal 6, which is special housing needs.
There we go. Okay, I got it.
All right, and I don't think there were any changes to the policies. Most of these are carryovers. And then the programs, which I don't believe there were any comments.
Well, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, another reference to pamphlets that was deleted.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we're up to goal 7, which is equal housing opportunities. And this is the last program. There are some numbering changes that happened as a result of moving some things around.
Right.
Another deletion of pamphlets.
And I would like to talk about 42E when you're ready.
Okay, we'll go back up. I believe that that's the last. We are just about at the end there.
Right.
Okay.
So it seems like we talk about programs to promote the production of ADUs and allow SB9 projects. I love allow, but I think what we did before, take out, promote, take out, allow. Programs for production of ADUs and SB9 projects. So we don't get into this, the adjective to put in front of it.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
It seems, and then you refer back to the programs where that's exactly what we did, so.
Okay. I don't believe there were any other changes after this point. Yeah, these are just the quantified objectives at the end. Oops. Shall I stop at this point? Because I know chapter 5 was a separate topic. There is a part of the, there was something that came up regarding the design guidelines, but maybe I'll stop at this point and just turn it back to the mayor.
We'll do that. I'll do it in chapter 5.
Okay.
So that takes us through chapter 6. And there were a couple things in chapter 5 that I'd like to deal with and open to others too. So I think the last page of the red line should be excerpt.
Raising her hand. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, Cynthia?
I wanted to go back to program 36 because I think that there was something under the responsible party for the sustainable development of residential or sustainable residential development that mentioned all town departments. And actually that was intended to be kind of all as in everybody. It's the developer responsibility. Is that where it was? Yeah. So
right
here
there.
it says all town departments, and I think that what we mean is everybody's responsible. Property owners, developers.
Yeah, I think that was certainly my intention on Monday night.
Okay, that edit is made.
Thank you.
Are other council members okay with that?
I am.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Okay
good
with that.
catch.
Can we go to, I've got one thing on chapter 5, which is design guidelines, and then also I've got a couple of non-governmental constraints that I'd like to propose out to you guys. In chapter 5 on design guidelines, I'd like to propose that, this is in chapter 5, it's under constraints. And I'd really like to get the design guidelines edited down to a 1 or 2 paragraph basic description, recognizing that, design guidelines may impose some constraints, but here we get pretty specific and with actions resulting. And so hear me out for a minute here. I want to talk about design guidelines because, maintaining semi-rural character is a top priority for the town, and it shows itself in the surveys. And then, to a great extent, this happens historically via design guidelines along with other criteria. And to some degree, we're talking about the single-family home neighborhoods and potential additional single-family home neighborhoods in those categories. So it's unlikely this really, even though the design guidelines apply to multifamily also, but the some of the directions on what we're going to change really is more specific to the single family. And and one of the primary characteristics of design guidelines is to address variability. This town, one of its characteristics is variability in housing. And one of those implementations is via variation in single story versus 2-story, but there are other characteristics too. Variation in setbacks, variation in orientation of the homes. And you can see that in many of the neighborhoods where the houses, some of them have been there for quite a while and some of them are fairly new, where this has been practiced. And Los Encinos is a case where it's been practiced fairly recently. Sansara is another case where it's been very successfully practiced. There's some other cases where it hasn't been so successfully practiced. So, if we're gonna cut out the 1-story, 2-story as a guideline, and legals come back and said, well, really, it's not a requirement to delete it. There's some risk, but there's always going to be some risk. Well, but if we're going to pull that out, should we not pull out also varying the front yard setbacks to give variability? And should we not also do away with modifying or having variations in orientation? And, so I really want to hear from my town councilors. Well, have any neighbors, have any town residents come to you and said, really this variation in 2 and single story is a bother to me, or that the variation in setbacks or orientation is a problem? I mean, is there anything in the community that's driving doing this? Conversely, in some of the cases where it hasn't been practiced, and the Moraga Center Specific Plan is an example of such, we get a lot of criticism of that and how some of those homes are not. And there are two additional factors to consider. One of them is for the majority of residents who moved here, homes were built, 30 years ago. These neighborhoods are established, and they do fit the criteria. For example, the 2-story, 1-story variability. So if you remove that, and now you're going to get a lot of folks potentially coming in and saying, well, I want to put a 2nd story in my house. And in the past where that's happened in these neighborhoods, the adjoining neighbors get very upset. And retaining this allows the governing body to implement modifications to that proposal to still retain privacy of adjoining neighbors. And also, it supports senior housing, which is one of our programs. It supports senior housing because seniors, not only do they prefer, in many cases, they have to live on a single floor, unless you've got an elevator type of arrangement. And for that reason, in Moraga, for some seniors, they pay a premium for a single-story home. So are we going to get rid of all those homes? So I'm all in favor of modifying the design guidelines where there's a conflict, an objective conflict with the municipal code to get that resolved. I have no problems with identifying that the guidelines can be a constraint. And there are lots of other characteristics in our town that are constraints, and they're named, but we're not wiping them out. And, just to compare with another locale, I sincerely doubt that San Francisco is gutting the Fisherman's Wharf area, its characteristics, just to satisfy that it's a little bit different and maybe a little bit privileged. So the characteristic of Moraga is semi-rural, and what I'm talking about, in fact, is a piece of that. And so that's my argument. I'd love to hear what you all have from a substance standpoint. And Renata?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a suggestion that, and this relates to the point I made earlier about the FAR standards, and I have found the place where we need to be consistent. But I think, Steve, the portion of Chapter 5 that appears to be giving you the most heartburn is this section, the sentence that begins on page 523 of the version that came with the staff report. In staff's experience using the guidelines, several provisions have been identified as subjective, arbitrary, or inappropriate for design guidelines document. These include, and then there's the 2-story thing, and a couple others. Guys, could one, instead of that paragraph, simply say, which I would also suggest that we say with respect to the FARs, that just generally speaking, we need to just take a look at, could say something like that, the guidelines should be evaluated for objectivity, and consideration should be evaluated for objectivity. Period, full stop, and not call these out, because there may be other ones.
That's part of my point. I agree.
Yeah.
We're focusing in on one particular Well, it's sensitive to me because I've dealt with it in the past for many years and the implications of it.
But I also would like to hear whether that is not specific enough.
Is that from me or from others?
No, I'm sorry. That's Barry and company.
Right.
And
And Cynthia wants to.
Yeah, I just want to say at the end of chapter 6, and I know it was kind of reverse order, but there are red lines to this section based on the input from council on Monday. And I'm wondering if you would like Barry to share his screen so you can see the red lines and the changes that were made in response to council comments.
So this is the design guidelines excerpt from chapter 5. And down here, we had deleted the reference to arbitrary and inappropriate and simply said that the provisions have been subjective or potentially problematic. In this draft, we did not eliminate the bulleted list, but we did at the end say these provisions should be evaluated to ensure that they enable homeowners to adapt their homes to meet changing needs.
And that's better, but I think it still shows prejudgment.
Yeah, I agree. So if we go back up, Barry, I mean, doesn't one just say that because several provisions have been identified as subjective? So that means they're by definition not objective. I mean, can one not rephrase this as saying that these provisions should be evaluated for objectivity?
Like that.
Steve, does that work for you?
That's fine, but you know, my point is when you've got guidelines, that means that you allow variability. And I've seen many years where that, you know, you've got the design review board or the planning commission coming up against challenges and they find a way around it that satisfies all parties. And so, you know, to end up where you've got a community where, you know, you've got these McMansions stuck all over the place, I think that's a problem.
So
and,
Steve,
so I am fighting for that.
Could you articulate what you would like?
I would just identify that the design guidelines are constrained, just like a lot of other aspects in our town are constraints to building homes, but they're guidelines and they get applied intelligently, or should be applied intelligently, so that the intent of the town of continuing to be semi-rural is a objective to meet. Something to that effect, Mike.
Okay.
But I see here, you know, that there are some conflicts that need to be resolved, and I agree in terms of you know, what's in the Muni Code and what's here.
I mean, I do like the idea that, you know, we will evaluate guidelines without identifying all the bullets, because as Renata, I think, said, we don't know if that's a full list or not. So I would take your idea and just say, we will evaluate this during our process. I wouldn't call out it's a constraint. That to me is like, okay, here's the bullseye. but you know, it is really a constraint.
Yeah, it is the chapter of constraints, and at times I've identified we ought to be calling it constraints and opportunities, but you know, HCD has dictated that we have a chapter on constraints, even though I've seen others who put a section on constraints in part of another chapter, but that's another issue. Yeah. It's not a battle I'm going to battle. So if we want to just do what Renata has said here, I'm fine with that. And then we give the opportunity to something like the Planning Commission to weigh in on the role of some of these guidelines, because we've got a whole book of guidelines that address both the general town and also the MCSP. And I really think we're focusing on, one piece of it, but it's a broader issue.
And the planning commission, when we merged, the design review board, retained those responsibilities. Oh, I'm fine with that. Renata, could you just articulate again what your suggestion was?
I had suggested that we state that the design review guidelines should be evaluated for objectivity.
Okay.
Mr.
Sona
Mayor?
has her hand up.
Thank you. I don't think because I think Renata asked this point, but then we didn't get an answer, and I'd like to get more information, because isn't that an issue of specificity in the sense that, we are being asked and tasked to identify these types of challenges, these types of constraints. But if we just say that there's a constraint without naming what the constraint is, then it's like, well, how are you going to solve the problem? By specifying that this is the type of things that are leading to potential development constraints, then we successfully demonstrate that we're committed to solving these types of problems. I'm not really sure by just saying that we're going to evaluate it, but I'd like to hear more about that, whether that's level of specificity, if we remove it, it really waters it down.
So if I can at least begin to address that, Sona, that's a dang good question. The sort of the input I got from staff was sort of a questioning whether any guidelines are my interpretation was, any guidelines might be at risk because if you apply them differently to different situations, you might get sued. That's always a risk. But there are cases, for example, where fence height is nominally 6 feet. In some locations, the town does allow a variance on that to 8 feet. So, can someone come and sue us because someone else got an 8-foot high fence? I'm just recognizing that, some of these are key to semi-rural character, and one in particular got selected to be identified originally as should be modified or removed, and so I'm reacting to that, and how we address that, I've got flexibility. So, Renata, go ahead.
Thank you. I think we don't. I think it's important that we don't get too bogged down in this. I am just wondering if we just say in this, what Barry's showing, take out in staff's experience using the guidelines, say several provisions have been identified as potentially subjective and should be evaluated for objectivity. These include, and then just leave it. Because we're not prejudging, we're not reaching a conclusion, but we're saying, these do stand out, and I think some specificity is helpful because then we can demonstrate, as the state wants us to, that we are linking constraints to our solutions, and
so
this is part of it.
So let's look quickly at the sentence after it.
After the bullets?
Yeah.
I wonder, is that sentence necessary?
I'd pull it out.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agree.
Okay. So I've got two other things. I just want to make you aware of, and hopefully it's going to be put in by staff because they said they were going to. This is non-government constraints, and I identified that non-government constraints include in Moraga steep slopes, geologic instabilities, protected open space, including watershed. And we had discussed it, and I think they said that would be included. I haven't seen it, and that's fine. I'm not hung up on, specific wordsmithing of it, but I think we need to recognize that, a lot of the space is in fact limited. If you look at our list of site list, the majority of them have slopes greater than 20%, and so sort of by definition that poses constraints on development. And then I think that I would propose, and does anyone else go along with that, or am I often in my own world again?
If I'm Mr. Mayor, yeah. So I agree with everything you said. I would not say steep slopes. I would say topography. Because if you say steep slopes, we'll get into my engineer says we can do 33%. So it's really your guidelines and the general plan that is a constraint. And I don't think we want to go there. It's the topography of the town is a constraint.
I agree with that.
I agree. So then my other hobby horse was a constraint posed by traffic congestion. We really don't address traffic congestion. We reference it, but we really don't address it in this document yet. And I view traffic congestion as a non-governmental issue. So that piece of Chapter 5 and what I drafted and provided yesterday reads as follows: traffic congestion, both transiting to and from Moraga and travel within Moraga. Moraga is essentially surrounded by hills with few transit corridors. Significant transit traffic congestion results, including through the adjacent towns. Within Moraga, the topography is primarily hilly with limited level land. This characteristic complicates accommodating traffic associated with additional development, including negatively impacting community safety. This challenge is exacerbated by most development opportunities in Moraga being infill type. Do the other town council members see that as a constraint? I do. I welcome your comments. Teresa?
Steve, I agree. Those are definitely constraints. Where would you be putting this?
In Chapter 5 is broken up between governmental constraints, and at the end they're non-governmental constraints, and both of those I put in the category of non-governmental constraints.
Okay.
So it's at Teresa. It's at page 541. That's where it's the last section of Chapter 5.
Yeah. Cynthia?
I think we need to be careful on both of these last two suggestions, and maybe we can ask both Barry and Karen to weigh in on this. Because there are many cities who have tried to use evacuation and fire and topography and lions, right? Lions, all sorts of things as ways of non-governmental constraints. And I know the Attorney General is currently suing a few cities, and this is not really flying. So I think we should be careful there. So maybe, like I said, Karen and or Barry could give us an update on this. Barry, okay.
I'm happy to start. And I was just going to say that those topics are addressed, but they're addressed in Chapter 4 and not in Chapter 5 because they're constraints to the specific sites that we've identified. That's what we're required to, to provide is to list out, we've identified these particular properties as housing opportunity sites. And we do go into a bit of detail in that chapter at the end about we call them steep slopes in that chapter, but we define that as 20% or greater. Floodplains, wildfire hazard and severity. I believe we address traffic and transportation, but it's addressed as something that affects the development capacity of those individual sites. Yeah, I have seen housing elements where constraints include the natural hazards, but in a pretty general way. It would be a paragraph, but you would be basically referring the reader back to chapter 4 for a more detailed discussion of those issues.
Yeah, and all I've done is add a couple paragraphs or less in each of those, Barry. I guess I'd ask you to then compare these with the other non-governmental constraints that you got in here: ability of financing, cost of land, construction cost, and so forth, and do a ranking, and especially I suspect that a lot of our residents feel that, for example, congestion getting in and out of town, especially in an emergency, is a significant and real constraint for the town.
I would say there are these macro level constraints, which you're describing well, and then there's the site constraints, which we go into quite a bit of detail about in both Appendix B and Chapter 4. But
Barry, if you're, Stephanie, go ahead.
Some of those items that you were mentioning related to availability of financing and cost of construction are required items in the housing element under HCD's guidance. So we have to include a discussion of those. That doesn't mean that we can't include additional items that may be non-governmental constraints that are not required, but that's part of the reason why those items specifically are called out, is because HCD will be looking for that discussion. I do worry somewhat about including additional items that are not required that may then throw up a flag for HCD as something that the town would need to address through the programs. So, if we are going to add something optional, we might want to think about how, what we would say the response to that might be.
And the one other thing
I've identified them. They very much do make Moraga different than most other towns, and so it's not something I'm going to try to wrestle you to the ground on.
And the one other thing I just want
to include it, I offer it. I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No.
Oh, I was just going to note one other thing with respect to the issues regarding congestion. And the state has really moved away from looking at congestion as an environmental impact and really focusing on vehicle miles traveled. So, for example, in the CEQA document that will be prepared, what the consultants in the town will really be looking at is the vehicle miles traveled rather than congestion. So we also want to be careful about using that or mentioning that, I think, in the housing element.
Okay, so does this? Yeah, go ahead, Renata.
Are you ready to move on, Mr. Mayor?
I am.
I'm not going to talk if you're ready to move on.
I've said my piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for tolerating such. You can lead a horse to water. Anyway, this brings us to, I think.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I have one more thing on Chapter 5. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I had noted earlier that we needed to do a conforming revision. So on FAR, which is on the version that's in the big packet, is page 524. There's that paragraph that says, while FARs themselves are not a development constraint, their location in an appendix to the design guidelines makes them harder to apply as objective standards. Remember, I had said that we need to conform that to what we say in Chapter 6, and what I rewrote that paragraph as is, the FAR standards should be evaluated for objectivity, and consideration should be given to moving them from the Moraga Design Guidelines to the Moraga Municipal Code, or something like that. Good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my hand in. So I need to ask one question related to Chapter 6 programs of staff that I raised on Monday.
So town manager, the programs in chapter 6, can all these programs, if approved, be accomplished with current staff resources and staffing?
As I indicated on Monday, the program for wildfire and its number changed. It's now program, somebody help me here.
14.
Program 14, there's a $75,000 cost to that. And then there's another program that has to do with, I think, fair housing. Those are programs.
I think that's 42.
42. If we were to hire somebody to help us with the GH&I, which has to do with kind of monitoring fair housing, I don't know, Barry, what do you think? $5,000 or $10,000 a year? I mean, we don't have that many complaints.
Mm-hmm.
So that funding isn't available. I mean, maybe it could be 20 for the first year, but I don't see it as an ongoing issue. But that is not funded.
Okay, that's good. But in the large picture of our financials and opportunities that we have with revenue or expense savings, these sound relatively modest in terms of performing this.
Yeah, but I think that, I think it's important for the town council to be acutely aware of the fact that there are more and more requirements regarding housing. And most cities have housing divisions and special housing staff. And we've kind of absorbed that within our very small planning department of 4 planners. So, we juggle and really need to prioritize what we can do, because they do long-term planning, they do current planning, they do code enforcement. And so I think that we're going to continue to have issues with not having enough staff to do all the work that, you all really want to be done, because they also work on sustainability issues. And, we were talking today because planning staff really needs to play a larger role in what's happening in terms of recycling and all the requirements of our food providers, whether it's restaurants or, schools. There's increasing requirements there. So sure, we can do it, but we can't do everything.
Right. So we'll have to set priorities and make choices.
Yes.
As a reality of this. Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's a very, very good question and subject, but probably not one that we can really address tonight. Anyway, getting a hard estimate on how many people.
I don't want a hard estimate. I just want what Cynthia said was perfect.
Okay. Anything else on chapters 5, 6, or the other chapters that we want to address in terms of potential modifications prior to it being submitted to HCD? Do we need to review the Planning Commission recommendations? We did that basically Monday night. Do we need to take another look at it? I'm seeing shaking heads no. Okay. Do we... I have two more activities prior to voting on a motion. One of them is to give town council members the opportunity to comment, closing comments. The other thing is to ask staff to feed back what changes they've heard tonight, if we need to do that. Now, we've seen a lot of it done in real-time editing. Barry, you have your hand up. Let's take the easy thing first. Barry, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a reminder for the public that the comment period on this document will remain open until July 30th. And we will be reviewing comments from the public between now and then and after that date. We are, as part of this process, requesting your approval to make non-substantive changes. We are unlikely to make changes to Chapter 6. It changes based on things like factual errors that may come up. And then there'll be an annotated description of public comments that goes into the document, not a detailed copy of every comment, but just a summary of the comments that were received on this for HCD's benefit. That's something that they want to see as part of this.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my cogitation on whether we need feedback on the changes is that we basically saw the changes made real time in the draft document. So I'm not sure there's a lot of benefit in to try to regurgitate that again. And shake your head yes if you agree with me, or show the thumbs. And if I see thumbs up, I'm gonna say that the town council has confidence that the document that has been edited tonight is the document that is we're going to vote on to move towards HCD. Everybody okay? Okay. Would members of the town council like to make any closing comments? I'm happy. Well, go ahead, Sona. Oh, if you want to start.
You can
I
start.
have a couple comments.
You can go. You can start.
Okay, so I just want to say that you know, as Afsha said earlier tonight, this, you know, the end of, or a milestone point in this process after 9 months of working diligently at this. And, you know, I think this, you know, you can weigh the paper or you can look at the substance, and it really reflects a significant effort, a significant product, is an excellent job at defining where this town needs to head. And part of how I view the success of that is that everybody is, all the different stakeholders, and, you know, we can sort of name categories, they all are happy with some things and very unhappy with other pieces of it. Will that in the end be the best way forward for Moraga? Well, you know, still going to have some maturing, but I sure want to compliment staff for you know, carrying the load. And when I say staff, I'm talking about the town staff and also the team, the consulting team, and making this a very credible effort and product. So something that I'm comfortable with sending to HCD. Renata, you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that I also want to add to what you've said, Steve, that I want to thank the public and the residents of this town for their engagement in this process. I mean, it truly, the word unprecedented definitely applies on the amount of input we've gotten. I mean, 1,000 survey responses, over 100 responses to our interactive tool, rounds of community meetings. We've had now 9 public hearings, and we've gotten input before, during, and after the hearings. And, you know, comments on the draft of the housing element. So, and there's more to come. This is kind of the halfway point in the process, and we look forward to continuing to hear from you. I also just want to do a shout out to our planning director extraordinaire, Afsha Hamid, who pulled together what this draft is an extraordinary piece of staff work. So thank you to Afsha and her small but mighty team in our planning department. It really was outstanding work. And then I also want to thank the developers and property owners who have weighed in, the process, because their perspectives have been critical to our thinking about this. Because, you know, if we adopt a bunch of standards that don't make any sense or don't pencil out, nothing's going to get built. So we very much appreciate your feedback, your continuing engagement. And I want to especially thank Dave Berzoni for spending time with me, explaining his concerns about some of the policy issues and how he sees them affecting him. And then Barry, your team of experts, outstanding work. I mean, thank you for reducing to simple, plain English terms a vast amount of information and something that's very complex. And then finally, I want to thank the Moraga School District for being a steadfast supporter of this plan and for advocating for more reachable housing in Moraga for the Moraga School District staff, for the teachers, and for the young families that we need to come into town to continue to keep our student numbers up. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are my comments.
Oh, I feel so inadequate that I did not address stakeholders. Yeah, like one of my favorite subjects. Sona, since you volunteered first, I'm going to override Mike here in this case. Sorry, Mike.
That's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely echo all of the thank yous and the heroic efforts by staff. It really, to me, like, you know, it comes down to that housing just shouldn't be a stressor, but the reality is that it causes a lot of mental anguish for lots of different people, and especially for people that have faced lack of access to it at all. And for the next incoming generation, some of whom we got to hear from today as well. And everyone deserves a decent, safe quality of life. And it was really important that we balanced all of the various important factors to reach that ultimate goal of trying to plan for a future where more people can have a decent, safe, secure quality of life. And I think this document is a commitment to that future. I was really hopeful that, you know, we wouldn't water our commitments down. And I don't think that we got to a place where that happened. I think that we are sending the right signal. And in some places, you know, we may hear feedback that we need to do more. And I think we're all open and welcome to that, and invite all of the iterative process to get us to a place that we can maintain the commitments that we started off at the beginning of this initiative, which is to advance the livability of Moraga residents and for an all range of income levels. So I'm really happy with the document and ready to move forward.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mr. Mayor, I think it's almost 1 a.m. by you, so I think we can understand why maybe stakeholders slipped your mind, but you are Mr. Stakeholder, so I've always enjoyed that. Yeah, anyway, hopefully it's okay to say thank you to staff a few times here, because you've earned it, folks. So, you know, it's funny, I was thinking you look at the last housing element and you look at this housing element, and it's night and day, not just from the housing element, but to me, it's the pro. What process did you go through to get this document? And the process we went through this time was as wide as the Grand Canyon and as deep as the Grand Canyon. And I've been a champion of engagement, and I'm sitting here smiling and applauding all the engagement that occurred. And when I heard things like, oh, we're going to go do a walking tour, you know, those are just out of the box, and they're great. So I don't know if I can say thank you enough. Barry, you and your folks, Afsha, of course, and Cynthia, don't underestimate yourself. You're helping to steer the ship, you know, and council members as well. So that's great. I want to thank the Planning Commission. I thought you folks have spent a lot of time. You gave us great input, great insights. We incorporated many of your comments right into the document. So great job as usual. I want to thank the developers as well. You know, I talked to Dave Berzoni, Jay Kerner, Jeff Stone. I was glad to hear another developer on Monday. So 4 developers have chimed in. I think I'm hearing progress, and we'd like to see a few less constraints, and we just have to balance that with maintaining what we have. I've always championed the phrase, let's build Moraga so it looks like Moraga. So there's a balance to that statement, but thank you for being engaged and working together, and looking forward to working together as we go forward. And then last but not least are the residents. And thank you for taking the time and doing the balancing act and coming to meetings and being involved and sending in your survey and sending emails. And we need to hear from you. We're here. Our job's to listen. We work for you. So you've been fantastic. And to me, where I think we've ended up in the last 2 nights, we've removed a lot of the objections of the residents. Everybody wanted the density in the 2 centers, and that's what we've zoned for. The 1,100 units are in the 2 centers. We have different types of housing: apartments, condos, townhomes, senior housing, work-live housing, and the list goes on. That's what we want. We also have the income levels, and we've done 2 major programs. One is the inclusionary to help that process forward, and we've removed the number 1 constraint of developers, or reduced it, I should say: parking. Okay, at the end of the day, we've also changed the language. We are no longer promoting multifamily development in single-family neighborhoods. I heard that one the most from everybody in this town. Please, what are you doing? So we'll see what happens. This game isn't over. Yeah, I think it is around halftime, Renata. So we'll see what comes back to us. But that's important, because single-family homes in neighborhoods, that's a type of housing. And residents have rights, and they moved here for that, and they have the right to expect that. And then we add in all the other types of housing. And I think that makes all the sense in the world. No subsidies. We're leaving the general plan with just changes as needed. So I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 days. And tonight, I can't tell you, it was actually enjoyable to sit here and go through this. I've gone through some wordsmithing sessions over the years. It was not fun, but tonight was good. So the council members, staff, and Barry, you were great. You take the keyboard anytime you want, Barry. You were great. And Barry, you listened. You told us, I don't know if that's a good idea, or yeah, I think it works in this case. We need that feedback. We don't know. So, it's a team effort. So we all work together. So I just want to give everybody a big thank you. And I hope Cynthia and Afsha and Barry and everybody involved can take a little break and go have lunch and do a mid-game celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Teresa.
Okay, well, I don't think I can add much to what you've already said. All of you have already said. But I did want to add a few things. I guess, first of all, for everyone who's listening or who will be listening, to remember that we are all citizens of Moraga, us on council. And we moved here for the same reasons that you moved here. And we love Moraga. We want to keep it, keep the things that we love about Moraga. And I think what we're going to be keeping are the hillsides, the ridge lines, all of the trails. We're adding to that. We have challenges, the evacuation, fire. Those are huge, huge concerns, and congestion, especially during school hours. So we understand the challenges that we have, and we also have challenges that we need vitality in this town, which we do not have right now. When years ago, when I first ran, what people said was that we love the schools, we love the hillsides, we love the ridgelines, we wish there was a place to shop. And I think that this will be bringing that to all of us. And it's there's going to be moments where we're saying, oh my God, what did we do? But I think given, what we've been given by the state, I think we're doing the best job that we possibly can. And the reason we are able to do this job is because of the staff and because of Barry's staff. This was an incredible document. We've all looked at lots of things like this, and this one really is first class. So thank you, Afsha. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, all of the staff. I wish I knew everybody's names. I'd say them all. and also the people weighed in this town, and both for and against. And, you know, we'll see how it goes. There's going to be challenges. This is not going to be a walk through the park, but I think we'll all hopefully come together and save the things that we can save and that are really intercut to the town, the things that we love the most about this town. So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm just looking for the requested wording for a motion. Okay, wait a minute.
We didn't include exact wording, but basically move to submit the working draft housing element as edited to the state HCD once the.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to try it, take a crack at it, and then Karen can correct me, or would you like to do it?
I think I can do it. Thank you.
Okay.
I move for approval by motion the submittal of the working draft 2023 through 2031 Moraga housing element to the California Department of Housing and Community Development for review following the close of the 30-day public review period ending on July 30th, 2022.
Second.
Karen, is there anything else that needs to be
Non-substantive comments.
Yeah, may I suggest an amendment, Mr. Mayor, to your motion, which would be an authorizing staff to make any non-substantive edits to the document prior to submission.
I accept that amendment.
Karen, do we need anything else?
No, I think that's fine. That authorizes edits and gives the date that it won't be submitted until after the public comment period is closed
and will not be submitted until after the public comment period has closed.
Yeah, I covered that. Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call. Councilmember Onoda,
Yes.
Macher,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sauce,
Yes.
and Mayor Wallachie is a yes. Unanimous, approved. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, very much. Thank you, council, and thank you, planning commission and Barry's team, as well as BAE, and also our legal staff. Thank you so much.
Good. So we still have some important stuff to take care of tonight. Reports in preparation for going off on break. So, anything else before we go to reports that we need to address? That's the next item. Town manager, would you like to start?
Yes, I will be short. Our Buy Rocket program is still open. We're encouraging donations. As many of you know, we are going on a council recess, which we do every year. Our next meeting will be on August 24th. During that time, the nomination period for filing for a Moraga Town Council seat opens on Monday, July 18th, and will be open for, I think, 4 weeks until August 12th. You should call the town clerk. You need to make an appointment to file your papers or pull papers. Her phone number is 925-888-7022. We have Planning Commission and Park and Rec Commission. All their meetings go dark either for the rest of July or for August. We have the family camp out this weekend at Rancho Laguna Park. It's our biggest year ever. We'll have over 180 campers. I'm sure it'll be super fun. Let's see, one more thing. This week we finished the micro surface sealing of the last street project as part of our summer pavement program. When we come back in August, you'll be looking at the contracts for the 6 million or so worst first streets construction. And that's it. Thank you very much. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Teresa?
Yeah, mine is very short. I've been working a lot with Art in Public Spaces, and if you go to the town hall, you will see 2 new sculptures out in front of Chief King's office. And he is okay with them. I don't think he'll shoot them. So even though they're kinetic, so I think that's okay. Been doing lots of stuff with that, and also with MCE, and that's pretty much it.
Good. Thank you very much. Enjoy your time off.
Thank you.
Mike, are you?
Yeah, ready to go here. Yeah, I just wanted to say I thought the 4th of July activities were just outstanding. I think everybody was ready for it, and I hope people will, if you enjoyed the fireworks and you haven't given a check for donations, please do, because we try to make that a break-even item. Buy a rocket, $60, I believe. So I just want to say kudos, Brianna and Cynthia, great job on 4th of July. I think everybody appreciated it. Things I've been doing other than the housing element, Chamber of Commerce board meeting, and the CCTA committee, and end of report.
Thank you. It looks like we lost Sona.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Renata, would you like to update us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to also express how delightful it was to share in the joy and the celebration at the park on July 4th. I mean, it was just so heartwarming to see the kids in the jumpy houses running around with syrup from the ice snow cones smeared on their faces and showing their balloon animals to their families. You know, it was interesting. I met families who came to the event from Burlingame, Walnut Creek, Concord, Oakland, and Pleasant Hill. And everyone I talked to was really drawn to the small town feel of the celebration. I mean, it was again a reminder of what a tight-knit and generous community we have. I mean, there were scores of volunteers from service organizations, the Scouts, and others working the grills, working the concession stand, the booths, and the jumpy houses for the benefit of all of us. It truly was a magnificent community effort. And again, I want to thank town staff for its seamless execution of another fantastic event. So great 4th of July. Look forward to next year. And let me just also echo what Mike said. Please, if you enjoyed the fireworks, if you want to bring the fireworks show back next year, please contribute to the Buy a Rocket fund, because your donations, however big or however small, are welcome and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Sona is back, but quick question, Cynthia, do you know where we stand on the fund?
Yeah, we're at about $15,500. Usually we're at like 10 or so prior, or 11, 12 prior, and then we get another 10 to 12 after. So it is somewhat interesting that we didn't get a big bump following everybody's enjoyment of the festivities. But
Okay.
yeah, usually we raise about $20 to $25,000 from Buy Rocket, so we're short.
Sona, would you like to give a update? She may still be connecting.
Still connected. Oh no, here she is.
She's on mute.
Sona, you're both muted and your video's off. Oh, there she is.
I don't have to use my phone. I think it's working now. Find my phone.
We can hear you.
Did you go? Okay.
So I'm gonna.
So you can
we'll
hear
give
me?
Sona another.
Okay.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, okay.
Would you like to give us an update on your report out?
Yes, sorry for my frozen screen or whatever is going on here. My report's pretty short, so I spent my time since the last meeting focusing on getting prepared for the housing element finalization, speaking with residents in my community and collecting feedback informally. And in addition, preparing for attended my first 4th of July celebrations, which we heard at the beginning of the call was very smooth. It was just an excellent introduction for me, having not been able to participate in events during COVID. So really appreciate all of the work that went into it. And it's end of report for me.
Thank you, Sona. So my report out is likewise fairly short, echoing the comments about 4th of July. It's a day that a lot of stress, planning, efforts go into preparing for it, and I know that especially for staff, it's an awful lot of work preparing for it. And then the day happens, and as the success of that planning proves, it all went very, very smoothly. And I enjoyed giving the welcome to the fireworks speech prior to the band starting. Well, anyway, yeah, it was just a great day. And then 2 days later, on that Thursday, or 3 days later, I attended the Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference meeting. That was virtual. And let's see, East Bay Mud gave a presentation. Just very quickly for anyone who's listening, we are in the stage 2 drought, and they are requesting or directing a 10% reduction in water use. They're charging 8% surcharge, and if you use over 1,600 gallons per day, then you get an excessive use surcharge. They are pilot testing a program of injecting water into aquifers out in the valley, and the intent is to inject and then recover, and so that might become, so to speak, a new reservoir opportunity. On the transportation side, just FYI, they're pursuing. There's an effort to establish a bus lane on the shoulder of 680. So that's being pursued, and obviously Renata is aware of that. But that's an interesting idea. And finally, the one I'm a little bit scared of even talking about, Burning Man is coming back. Nice. And apparently the mayor of Reno offers one-day visits out to Burning Man, and we have to. Anyone who wants to do it has to sign up by July 18th. I don't know if it's just for one dignitary per town or more than one, but if anyone is interested, the dates are August 29th, August 30th, and I'm going to seriously look at it myself. But
enjoy yourself, Steve.
Deadline is July 18th.
And if you don't go, let me know.
Take pictures.
Well, if we can send 2, are you interested?
Yeah. I'd love to go.
What a surprise. Okay. That's all I've got. And that brings us on to any discussion items? No. Council requests for future agenda items. I see no hands raised. Communications, none. That moves us to adjournment. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
So I heard Teresa make the motion and Mike seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Karen, you're here because we.
Because I was just going to say goodbye.
Oh. Enjoy your summers. See
Hey,
you in
Mayor.
August.
Mayor, good job running the last 2 meetings.
That's right.
You
Good
did
job.
You guys made it easy.
Yeah, it was fun, actually.
Have a good summer, everyone.
Congratulations, great work.
Happy break, everyone.
Thank
Yeah,
you, you
too.
too.
Bye.